The name is Ander, and I woke up suffocating. My face was buried directly in some girl's chest. I pulled free, and saw a girl with dog ears and a tail, staring down at me with big brown eyes. Her name was Elena, a half-beast girl. She had found me passed out in the snow, and kept me warm with her body heat. I figured out pretty fast what happened. Got slammed by a truck in my old world. Now I am in a fantasy world. Classic. The place I landed in was absolutely freezing cold. A broken down shack with holes everywhere. Elena lived here all alone, dirt poor, with literally no food, just a rock-hard piece of black bread she offered, even though she was clearly starving herself. But get this, before I could even plan, 4 scary thugs kicked down the door. They claimed Elena's dead guardian owed them cash, and started threatening her. I could not just stand there, so I pulled out the only thing I had, just a cheap plastic lighter. When I flicked it on, they freaked. See? In this world, making fire out of absolutely nothing looked like legendary magic to them. I told them it was a holy artifact, and handed it over just so they would finally scram. Once they left, something clicked in my mind. An adventurer's handbook popped up. My stats were basically garbage across the board, except for a talent called Sharp Eye, which let me see hidden potential. And when I checked her stats, I totally lost it. Her combat potential was S rank, the highest tier possible. This shy, bullied girl was secretly a powerhouse. I grabbed her hands and asked her to join my adventuring team. I promised her food, shelter, and a life where nobody would ever push her around. She looked confused but hopeful, and her tail started wagging. The girl said yes, but right as I started celebrating, those same 4 thugs kicked the door open again, this time with weapons drawn. They realized my lighter was just a cheap trick, and they wanted to strip me of everything. As they surrounded us, I quickly shoved Elena behind me. Here I was, thinking I scored the best companion ever, and yet, I was already near death, with 4 armed thugs closing right in. My mind was racing, desperately searching for any escape. Fighting them was suicide. I was totally useless, and talking my way out, not happening today. Especially not with that greedy look in their eyes. To make things worse, Elena was trembling behind me, so I started buying time. I needed to use the handbook to grant Elena a skill to turn this around, but then guess what? A booming female voice thundered from right outside, telling them to stop, making the thugs freeze. Then, their faces totally shifted. Their eyes literally turned into bright hearts, and they started tripping over each other, throwing out compliments like a bunch of lovesick puppies. I poked my head outside to see this Miss Nana, the one they worshipped, and my jaw hit the floor. She was a massive, nearly 2-meter tall, green-skinned orc woman, literally built like a tank, boasting tusks and arms way thicker than my legs. Yet these thugs treated her like a literal supermodel. That is when it hit me. But look at this, beauty standards here are inverted. Elena, who is quite cute to me, is considered completely ugly here, while this massive orc lady is their dream goddess. My sharp eye skill quickly showed me her stats. Natasha, smash fist, combat potential. B rank, the handbook even suggested I recruit her. Once Natasha chased the thugs off and walked away, I pulled up my handbook again, ready to customize Elena's class. The choices were Berserker, with high compatibility, Fist Fighter, medium, or Bard, low. I chose Berserker without a doubt. It matched her S-rank combat instinct perfectly. The second I hit confirm, Elena trembled as something wild awakened inside her. She unlocked 2 new skills, Tracking and Berserk mode. It gives her physical stats a massive temporary boost, but it leaves her completely drained. And right on cue, those annoying thugs kicked my door down again. Except this time, I was ready. Pointing right at them, I yelled for Elena, "Go wild and bite them." Something inside her just snapped. Her eyes flashed blood red as she let out an inhuman howl. And then, she absolutely shredded all 4 thugs. In under 10 seconds flat. She bit one guy straight through his coat to the bone. Another got launched across the room. The third got kicked straight into the wall. And the boss took a brutal chest headbutt and went down like a rock. Pure, glorious chaos. Until I realized there was no one left to fight, and she was staring right at me with those red eyes. I shrieked, "I am on your side. Remember, I am the one feeding you." Thankfully, the frenzy ended right there. She just collapsed, utterly clueless about what she just did. Once she was safely resting up, I immediately got to work. First, I snatched my lighter back from the boss. Then, I stripped all 4 of their warm coats and pants, Let's call it emotional damage compensation, plus property damage. I grabbed the cleanest set and threw it on, after shivering in the freezing cold for hours. Honestly, that warmth felt like absolute heaven. The naked thugs slowly crawled away in the snow. Good riddance, my adventurer handbook, pinged with rewards for the whole fight. It gave me a B rank rating and to stat points. I dumped one into strength and one into toughness. Elena's combat instinct also jumped to 5%, so I dumped her bonus point there, using the copper coins I swiped from their pockets. I sent Elena out to go buy food, but she returned carrying rock-hard bread, stale black bread and ugly root vegetables. She boiled them down into a thick gray paste. We only had a cracked pot over our tiny campfire. No seasoning, no oil, absolutely nothing. It literally tasted like spoiled glue mixed with dirt. Yet she looked incredibly proud of her cooking, so I gave her a big thumbs up and forced it down. That freezing night was pure torture, even with those stolen coats. I was shivering violently. Alina quietly slid over and hugged me from behind to keep me warm. Then, the ultimate idea hit me. My plastic lighter, in a world relying on crude flint and tinder to start fires. A simple one-click flame is worth a literal fortune. Next morning, we headed straight into town. The entire way there, locals stared at Alina with pure, open disgust, whispering cruel insults, dodging us like we were carrying some deadly plague. She kept shrinking with every single step. I couldn't stand seeing this, so I held her hand tight and told her directly. She was incredibly special, her ears were adorable, her eyes shone beautifully, and she was truly one of a kind. She started crying soft, happy tears, her tail wagging so fast it became a total blur. Inside the general store, I unleashed my ultimate salesman act to sell my lighter as a rare, miniature flame storage artifact, direct from the mysterious East. The greedy shopkeeper tried lowballing me, but between my slick sales pitch and my natural charm, I walked away with 30 silver coins. Then we immediately hit the food stalls. Fresh bread, smoked meat, sweet turnips, charcoal, and real salt. Next, I brought Alina straight to the local blacksmith and purchased a solid, second-hand leather armor set for her, a matching helmet and an iron sword. For myself, I grabbed a simple wooden shield and a short spear. I am no fighter. My duty is to stay safely in the back and shout commands. Back at our rundown shack, I took over dinner duties, making a rich stew with smoked meat and turnips. The second Alina tasted it, she almost burst into tears. She whispered that was the most delicious thing she had ever eaten. The awful hunger, her stat debuff finally vanished after that meal. After eating, we patched up the broken shack. Mixing clay and straw, we filled up the wall cracks, gathered branches and dry grass to fix the roof. Hard work, but by the time night fell, the freezing wind was not blowing straight through anymore. Honestly, Elena looked so genuinely happy there, and we can tell it was a first for her. Warm shelter, real food, someone who actually cared about her. Then she crawled right over next to me. With a flushed face, her tail rested on my leg, softly asking if I was still cold. My brain kept screaming that she was my teammate. I absolutely had to avoid crossing any lines. But my mouth said yeah. Cold or not, it didn't matter. Before I could even finish my sentence, she was already fast asleep, snoring away. Next morning, I woke up with Elena curled in my arms. She was drooling slightly and nosing my chin in her sleep. Pretty cute, but I had to focus. Training came first, so I woke her up early and started what I called scientific training. Honestly, it was just those radio calisthenics that I used to do every morning at school. Back in my old world. Stretches, arm swings, leg kicks. Elena followed along, looking exactly like a confused duck flapping its wings. But we both got warmed up, so it worked. Then we started running laps around the shack. She jogged so easily, while I practically died from my absolute garbage stamina. Afternoons were for weapon practice. I handed Elena her shiny new sword and ordered her to swing it 1,000 times. Her first swing was incredibly wild. She spun in circles and almost launched herself forward, but she kept pushing through. Meanwhile, I practiced with my shield and spear quite badly. Slowly, I was starting to accept that my role was strictly just stand in the back and bark commands. I wanted a ranged option, so I crafted a sling from rope and scrap leather. My memory was pretty fuzzy, but my S-rank talent, sharp memory, kicked in, and get this, I unlocked a new skill. F-rank crafting. My very first throw almost hit my own foot. Hey, progress is progress. Then, I got the idea to brew medicine. Luckily, Elena's scavenging skills came through. She dug up some pain-killing grass and anti-swelling moss right from the snow. My sharp memory instantly triggered again, and I unlocked F-rank herbalism. I mashed the herbs together with animal fat to create a pretty crude healing salve. The system handbook called it barely effective, maybe even a placebo, but Elena tried it anyway. She complained it actually stung way more. I just told her that meant it was working. Still, I saw huge business potential. Our raw ingredients were basically free, so I bought some cheap gourd containers, filled them up with salve, and started selling them in town for 10 copper each. People were pretty rude, calling me a scammer. They told me to scram, but hey, I'm from the internet age. My skin is way thicker than castle walls. I sweet-talked them, joking and guilt-tripping until a few people finally bought some. My profit was tiny, about 5 copper per jar, but a few days later, an old, tired miner came back, saying his shoulder actually felt much better. Word of mouth, baby. Soon, my daily routine settled into a pattern. Mornings meant physical exercise and making salve. Afternoons, Alina's sword training, and my own pitiful combat practice. Evenings, we spent selling salve in town. Slowly, those copper coins started piling up. After several days of training and proper meals, Elena's stats recovered completely. No more hunger or terrible malnutrition penalties. She even unlocked rank F swordsmanship, and her combat instinct rose to 8%. She was getting stronger every single day. As for me, I picked up to crafting skills, but I was still hopeless in a fight. That's fine, a good CEO doesn't need to swing a sword. Just manage talent and oversee everything. Elena trained hard under the winter sun. Our little bag of coins kept growing. The shack slowly became a real home. I felt genuinely proud. Life in this world was finally looking up, right? Then I dropped a heavy sling stone on my toe, and spent the next minute hopping around in pain. Elena stopped her sword practice, tilted her head and asked with barely hidden amusement, "Are you okay? Do you want some salve on it?" Things were going pretty well for a while. Elena's sword skills kept improving. She could swing 2,000 times a day, without even breaking a sweat, and her combat instinct hit 10%. My herbalism leveled up to rank E, which meant my healing salves actually started working a little. An old miner became my first loyal customer, and spread the word, so sales slowly picked up. We weren't rich, but we could eat properly now, and even afford meat sometimes. Natasha, the Awk woman, visited a couple times to check on Elena. She was genuinely impressed that Elena had beaten those 4 thugs, and even gave her some solid fighting tips. She kept giving me that interesting man look, which made my skin crawl. Then, get this. Everything fell apart when the town sheriff, Hank, showed up at our door with 4 armed guards. He told me I was a prime suspect in a murder case. The shopkeeper's wife, yeah, the same woman I sold my lighter to, had been found dead in her store last night. Her husband, old John, was openly accusing me of killing her. His story was absolutely insane. He claimed I had been attracted to his wife. Apparently, I broke in at night to force myself on her, and then murdered her when she resisted. The prime evidence, my personal lighter, left right at the scene, covered in blood. I almost choked. Me, lusting after that middle-aged woman. The lie was utterly ridiculous. But here's the catch: that lighter was a big issue. I begged the sheriff to let me visit the shop and face my accuser right there, instead of getting tossed straight into jail. Surprisingly, he agreed. Even the sheriff knew this story sounded completely fake. At the shop, old John was losing his mind, howling that I deserved to hang. Right on cue, that garlic-nosed thug from earlier stumbled forward from the crowd, swearing up and down the lighter belonged to me. I kept my cool and stated the obvious. Sure, that lighter used to be mine, but I sold it to the victim for 30 silver coins, over 10 days ago. Its presence only proved it was her own property now. Not that I set foot inside. Old John shrieked that his wife would never spend 30 silver on some useless trinket, and insisted he had no idea about it, which felt pretty suspicious to me. 30 silver is quite a lot of cash. How could her husband not notice that? Honestly, this entire setup was pretty darn fake. The old man acted totally rehearsed, and having that thug show up was way too convenient. I was framed, so the real question remains: who actually ended her life, and why paint me as the perfect scapegoat? I had to find the truth, fast. With a heavy murder charge hanging directly over my head, my mind suddenly sparked. Every classic detective show I've ever watched, all those kid detective stories, even classic crime dramas. So I began grilling the sheriff for details. The poor victim got stabbed in her chest, and her face showed pure anger and shock, like she recognized her killer. Totally shocked by what was happening. That was my first real clue. So I questioned old John. Was any money missing from the shop? He stuttered and said no. I pounced on that immediately. If I supposedly went there to rob her, why would I leave without taking anything? And why go home just to wait for the sheriff? The sheriff started rubbing his chin. Even he could see it made no sense. Then old John made a ridiculous claim, claiming I was attracted to his wife. And guys, this is where things get truly shameless. I grabbed Alina, held her by the shoulders right in front of everyone, and launched into a super passionate speech, ranting about how her ears were perfection. Her fluffy tail was magnificent. Such unique beauty was far beyond anything these ordinary humans could ever understand. I declared that a man of taste, as uniquely refined as my own, would never look twice at a normal woman, like the shopkeeper's wife. The crazy part, it actually worked. The townspeople started nodding along. Yeah, if he's into the dog girl, he probably wouldn't go after the wife. Even the sheriff agreed. My wild taste was basically solid evidence. Alina turned bright red but looked thrilled. Old John started panicking. That's when I switched to interrogation mode. I asked the crowd, has anyone noticed anything weird about old John? Right away, a random woman with a basket piped up. She'd seen him hanging out with gamblers, including Garlic Nose and his shady gang. And boom, the missing piece. So I pointed straight at old John, channeling my inner anime detective. Only one truth exists. You are the real killer, as I laid out my theory. Turns out old John had massive gambling debts. He tried to swipe cash, or that expensive lighter from the shop to cover losses, but his wife caught him. They fought, and he killed her in a blind rage. That explains her shocked expression. She never expected her own husband to do it. Then he and Garlic Nose cooked up a plan to frame me, the easy outsider with zero allies. Hearing this, old John collapsed immediately, sobbing and confessing everything. The sheriff's face went dark. He quickly ordered both old John and Garlic Nose arrested. Right then, you should see their faces. They stared like I performed a miracle. The guy they totally looked down on, the weird outsider living with that ugly dog girl, solved a whole murder case in minutes. Walking home, Elena stayed glued to my side, staring up at me with absolute adoration. Amazing, she whispered, her tail gently brushing against my arm. I stroked my chin like some legendary detective and said, just the basics, no big deal. Suddenly, the system handbook rewarded me for solving the crime. To fresh stat points, I dumped them straight into strength and toughness as usual. And get this, even brain work rewards you with power, not fighting. That suited me perfectly. After that wild case, life got pretty good. I stopped wasting time working out, focusing completely on my herbal medicine business. Herbalism hit E rank, and sales exploded. Even people from other villages came to buy my medicine. My daily profit jumped from a few copper coins to a steady silver coin or two. That easily matched a professional carpenter's wage. So, I upgraded everything to much better food. Real meat every day, and a huge pot, constantly simmering on the fire, packed full of thick bones, meat, and vegetables. Elena got to eat hot soup the second her training ended. Next, I paid a carpenter to finally rebuild our shack, adding a solid, real door so we stopped freezing. Elena was thriving, pushing her swordsmanship to I rank. Her combat instinct hit 15%, and all of her base stats improved quite significantly. Thanks to good food and intense daily training, my own skills were progressing too. Herbalism reached D rank, and item crafting hit D2. But then, I hit a massive wall. Having a D rank skill with just one recipe was pretty useless. I desperately needed some new formulas. So I visited the town herbalist, desperately hoping to learn from him. Instead, he basically told me to get lost. He only takes local kids as his apprentices. Definitely not weird outsiders who hang out with beast girls. So much for that. Even worse, the herb supply around town was drying up. I was totally stuck, complaining about it out loud. But then Alina spoke up. She actually knew a place. The spooky black forest west of town. She had snuck in there once when she was starving, and found these glowing plants that looked super valuable, but incredibly dangerous. She was almost eaten by a giant wolf there. Honestly, that was all I needed to hear. Glowing herbs in a terrifying forest. Now that is real adventuring. Time to stop playing shopkeeper and actually head out on a quest. Besides, Elena's training needed a real test anyway. I pulled up our stats, and her numbers looked solid. Strength 10, Agility 8, Toughness 9, with multiple combat skills. Of course, I was still pretty useless in battle, but I had gotten a little tougher. But still, good enough for support, so I ran to the local second-hand shop and bought myself some leather armor, a helmet, and 2 small daggers. I used my crafting skill to sew sheepskin lining inside both our helmets for extra warmth. Elena happily wagged her tail when she tried hers on. We packed plenty of dried meat, bread, and water, checked all our weapons and got ready. At dawn the next morning, we geared up and headed west, straight toward the Black Forest. It was half hidden in thick fog at the town edge. Elena looked nervous, but definitely excited. She gripped her sword. I stared down at my cheap wooden shield and silently prayed, wishing for any monster Elena could fight. Some decent loot is all I am asking for. The Black Forest loomed ahead of us, like some dark beast crouching in snow. Wolf howls echoed everywhere, as bizarre monsters shrieked nearby. Shivering inside, I tightened up my armor, gripped my shield and warned Elena to stay very close. But wait, I am support, not the heavy vanguard. So we quickly swapped places and she took the lead. Just a bit deeper, Elena heard a sound. A white-horned rabbit, but as big as a fat cat, packing a lethal black horn on top of its head, lunging out of the snowbank and straight at her. Watch this, I could not even warn her. She sidestepped and sliced it cleanly in half with one swing. That top-tier swordsmanship is no joke. I harvested it immediately for some great soup meat, and that horn could make a decent dagger blade. While searching for herbs, I got quite lucky with my sling, and dropped a fat bird right off its branch. Right where it landed, I spotted weird black mushrooms covered in white spots, sprouting right from a dead tree roots. Elena warned me they were super poisonous, but my sharp memory, recognizing them instantly as flycap mushrooms, a natural paralyzing agent that heat easily breaks down. Perfect for coating weapons. I carefully coated the sword for Elena, and my spear tip for a toxic upgrade. We never found the legendary glowing herbs Elena wanted, and as the sun began to sink, I knew staying out here was too risky. So we headed back. But get this, a giant winter wolf appeared, huge as a small cow leaping from the bushes, blocking our path with gray-white fur, snarling fangs and eyes starving for blood. Elena charges head-on, her blade ready. Steel clashes against razor claws with a screech. The heavy impact shoves her back half a step, but she draws first blood, slicing its paw open. And rage, the wolf instantly switches targets. It lunges right at me. I raise my shield just in time. The impact nearly knocks me off my feet. My arms go completely numb, but right as it swings again, suddenly, it freezes. Just a split second. And look at that, our shield poison finally kicks in. That tiny opening is all Elena needs. She drives her blade deep into its side. From there, the battle becomes a brutal back and forth. Sharp claws tear deep gashes into Elena's armor. I act as bait, getting absolutely battered, while sneaking in quick jabs with my poison spear. Every single hit stacks up even more paralysis. Slower, the giant wolf is flagging now. Finally, after dodging yet another desperate, wild lunge, paralysis kicks in. The beast stumbles, leaving its neck completely wide open. Elena grips her sword with both hands, bringing it crashing down with all her might. So close, her blade nearly decapitates it. Hot blood sprays violently across the white snow. The massive beast collapses and finally stops moving. I collapse, completely spent in the snow. Elena leans heavily on her sword, panting hard, but her eyes are shining. The Adventurer Handbook rates the C rank, notes our teamwork was quite rough, but praises our clever use of poison. I get 1 stat point and choose agility, learning a brand new skill, Shield Bash. At F rank, Elena's combat instinct hits 25%, and I dump her bonus point into toughness, bringing it to 10, then ask if she was scared. She admits it, yes. And honestly, hearing her say she fears nothing with me, priceless. Hearing that actually makes me smile for real. We dragged the massive wolf carcass home under the sunset. 1 horned rabbit, 1 fat bird, a pile of purple poison mushrooms, plus a wolf pelt, and 2 very tired adventurers. Not bad, especially for day 1. We dragged that massive winter wolf back home long after dark. Totally wiped out. I had Elena hang the carcass from a tree outside to drain the blood, while I whipped up a quick rabbit stew. Using our catch, the soup tasted surprisingly decent. Some wild fruits added a nice, tart kick to the meat. We ate, collapsed onto our hay beds and passed out cold. Next morning, I got us up super early. We tied that giant Wolf to two poles and hauled it into town, just like a real parade float. And we caused a scene. Crowds gathered to stare and whisper. Most of them were convinced we just found a dead carcass, instead of actually killing it. Now watch how I handled this disrespect. So I told Elena to show them what she's made of. She drew her blade to demonstrate. Right there in the street, slashing and thrusting, spinning the cold steel with terrifying speed and power. She finished with one precise downward strike that froze dead in midair. The whole crowd went dead silent. Nobody was calling us scavengers anymore. Sheriff Hank arrived. He checked those Wolf wounds and confirmed our kill was legitimate. He even praised our work. That nod shut down the doubters instantly, so I started an auction right there. The local tanner wanted the pelt, grumbling about the spear holes, but still paid 8 silver. Some craftsmen bought up the teeth and claws for 10 silver, and the butcher took the meat for 12. 30 silver coins total. You have no idea how satisfying that weight felt. I almost fainted from pure joy. With sweet cash in hand, I dragged Elena along on a major shopping spree. First stop, the general store. Now under some new management after that murder case. I bought a big packet of dried herbs for cooking, after weeks of having absolutely nothing but plain salt. This felt like buying rare luxury spices. Then I grabbed a massive slab of fresh lamb, beautifully marbled with fat. I lifted it up and made a proud announcement. Tonight, we are not having stew. Tonight, it is grilled lamb skewers instead. Elena had absolutely no clue what that meant, but just the words lamb and grilled were enough. Her eyes lit up instantly, and her fluffy tail went totally wild. She could barely stop the drool. I could not wait to get home, build a warm fire, and show this fantasy world what real home cooking actually looks like. I kept my promise to her. Chopping the lamb into thick chunks, I skewered them on sharpened sticks, crushed up the dried herbs with salt into a simple, savory seasoning mix, and grilled everything right over the fire pit. The moment fat started dripping onto the hot coals. Seriously, that sizzling, smoky aroma filled the room. Elena's tail was wagging so fast, it was a blur. She eagerly bit into the first skewer, burning her tongue but refusing to spit it out. Her eyes shot wide open, and she made these happy, soft whimpering sounds. She tore through one skewer after another, her face covered in grease, completely lost in the culinary bliss. It was not perfect, lacking chili flakes or cumin, which would have made it truly legendary. But in this frozen, desolate world, it was heaven. After we stuffed ourselves, I gave Elena the day off, though she tried protesting, saying she wanted to keep training to protect me. But I ordered her. I handed her a shiny silver coin for spending, telling her to go hang out with her friends and treat them to something nice. She clutched that silver coin like it was the most precious treasure in existence. With a quiet thank you, she stepped out into the snow. She looked back at me 3 times before completely vanishing. With her gone, I sat by the fire, really thinking hard about her future. Life was comfortable now, warm shelter, cozy room, decent food, and our medicine business was growing. But comfort wasn't enough. Real adventuring paid way better. Just one single Wolf got us 30 silver. That takes weeks of selling salves. Math, simple, right? Keep the medicine business going for steady income, but shift our main focus to hunting and exploring. I spent the entire morning working, brewing 30 jars of our new improved salve. My upgraded skills cut the actual work time in half. Then, I headed out to town. I dropped our damaged armor off at the tanner for quick repairs, sold every jar fast, counted my savings. All 37 silver went straight to the blacksmith. My old wooden shield was basically falling apart after that tough Wolf fight, so I bought a proper new one. Layered wood, a solid round shield, complete with an iron rim and a metal center boss. Heavy but solid, costing 12 silver. Then I spotted a really high-quality oak spear. It had a real steel head with deep blood grooves. 5 silver. Both were pretty expensive, but after getting absolutely tossed around by that Wolf, I was not cutting corners on survival gear anymore. Walking out, my wallet felt incredibly light, but man, I felt way more confident. New shield strapped to my back, brand new spear in hand. I headed home to wait for Elena. The dangerous Black Forest was calling, and this time, we would be better prepared. I was not there for what happened next. Check out what Elena told me later. She took that silver coin I had given her, and went straight to visit Natasha first. The big orc woman was pretty impressed by that Wolf hunt, and she started asking tons of questions about me, where I came from, what I enjoy, even what kind of person I was. Elena spoke honestly. but admitted something about it felt pretty uncomfortable. She described it as watching someone eye your favorite bone. She couldn't explain why, but she suddenly wanted to leave. So she bolted straight out of Natasha's place, not even staying for the meal she had planned to treat her to. Her next big stop was to find Sarah, a cat-eared half-beast girl. She was basically the only other person Elena could call a friend. They used to scavenge together in trash heaps, unlike Elena's timid nature. Seriously, she was all claws and fire. She would fight anyone who insulted her, no matter the odds, making her even more hated in town than Elena. Elena hadn't seen her since I arrived, so she went searching, but before she found her, she heard shouting. Two huge townsmen had Sarah pinned, accusing her of stealing smoked meat from old John's kitchen window. Sarah was screaming that she just found it in the snow, right below the window, saying it must have fallen out. Nobody believed her. The crowd just watched, tossing nasty comments about how half-beasts were thieves. And right here, something changed deep inside her. She remembered what I had told her, that she was special, and she shouldn't listen to those who could never see her worth. She felt the silver coin warm against her chest. I had given her that money to make her friends happy. And now, the closest person she had to a friend was being dragged away. So, for the first time in her life, Elena did not freeze up or hide. She pushed right through the crowd, clenching her fists and screaming at the top of her lungs. Stop. When she told me about it later on, I have to admit, I was so incredibly proud. That wasn't the scared girl I found, shivering inside that broken shack. Something inside her was truly changing. I was sitting by the fire, counting my silver coins, when Elena burst through the door, panicking wildly, dragging a scrawny cat-eared girl behind her. The girl had dark furry ears, bright green cat eyes, and a puffed-up tail. She looked just like a cornered stray. Elena was almost crying while explaining her friend. Sarah, a feline beastkin, had been accused of stealing fresh meat from a window. Two men grabbed her, and when Elena tried to intervene, they shoved her and said horrible things. That triggered something deep inside her. She drew her sword and slashed one of them, leaving just a scratch on his arm. But still, she drew a weapon on civilians. But wait, it gets even worse. Sheriff Hank was already at my door. I immediately went into full damage control mode. I argued those men had zero right to grab anyone. That's the sheriff's job. Plus, they shoved Elena first, making her reaction basic self-defense. Besides, if Elena had truly meant harm, she easily could have done far worse. The sheriff had seen what she did to that wolf. I framed the whole thing to show Elena bravely standing up against those bullies, and gave Hank credit for being a fair leader. Who would see through this? Hank grumbled at my twisted logic but let it slide, since the actual injury was minor. He warned me to keep Elena's weapons sheathed in town. I agreed right away, and privately told Elena that next time, she should use her fists instead of a blade. Using fists is just a scuffle, but drawing a weapon makes it a crime. Meanwhile, I had already run my sharp eye over Sarah. What I saw made my heart race, and a rank combat potential and high stealth potential. A natural-born rogue and scout. This starving stray cat was another hidden gem. Sarah tried to leave, but I stopped her. I offered her some hot soup. Just that smell instantly froze her. She probably had not had a hot meal in forever. Sitting down, she absolutely demolished the bowl in seconds, purring softly without even realizing it, so I casually suggested she stay with us. Her instinct was to refuse immediately. She was used to surviving completely alone, trusting absolutely nobody. But then Elena stepped in with actual warmth, assuring Sarah that I was quite decent, someone who could help. Sarah stared at Elena's honest face, and then at me, then at the cozy fire and the leftover scraps of real food. After a long silence, she whispered a tiny okay. And just like that, we have 3 roommates. My guidebook rated the entire event C rank, giving me another free attribute point, which I immediately dumped into toughness. But more importantly, I now had a potential second party member, a true stealth specialist, to balance out Elena's berserker power. But I noticed something pretty interesting. When I had looked at Sarah earlier, Elena got quite tense, watching me very closely. Between that situation, and how she avoided Natasha's targeted questions about me, I started to think my dog-eared partner was developing some pretty territorial instincts that went way beyond simple teamwork. First priority was making Sarah feel comfortable here, so I dug out a thick winter coat, the one I looted from those thugs, and handed it to her, though it was massive on her. She had to roll the sleeves up, but it kept her warm. Then I got Alina's help to rearrange our little shack, making a decent sleeping spot right by the fire. Space was incredibly tight, so I ran to town to buy a new straw mat, plus 2 warm sheepskin blankets. That cost me 8 silver coins alone. Talk about a pretty brutal hit to my wallet. But you can't recruit teammates cheaply. Instead of just letting them freeze to death, I handed the girls the fresh bedding and the warmest corner, while I crashed on the old pile of hay and furs. Elena looked confused and quite hurt, since I wasn't sleeping right next to her anymore. But with a third person inside the house, sharing a bed just wasn't appropriate anymore. Sarah definitely noticed I gave them the prime spot. I caught a sudden shift in those green cat eyes. Surprise, maybe even a small hint of gratitude. Sarah barely slept at all that night, just lying there, watching me closely from under her blanket. Honestly, she was probably just waiting for the catch, waiting for the moment this all turned into a trick. Next morning, I made actual breakfast, reheating the wild bird soup with smoked meat and veggies. I even steamed the rock-hard bread to soften it. Sarah stared blankly at her bowl, like she couldn't believe this was actually real. As she ate, I said plainly, if she wanted to stop getting pushed around by everyone, you need to train with Alina. She quietly whispered that she was weak. I just pointed at Elena, stuffing her face, and told her she was weak once too. Now she hunts wolves. That hit home. Her first training session was eye-opening. Elena played the senior student, teaching Sarah all the morning exercises. Sarah picked up the movements pretty much instantly, while Elena had flopped around like a clumsy duck. She was completely fluid and graceful right away. That cat tribe agility, absolutely unreal to watch. Her stamina was pretty terrible, though. She could barely run a few laps before turning pale. Nothing that good food and solid practice won't fix. While they trained, I grabbed an axe and started chopping down small trees. Not for firewood, wet winter would just make nasty smoke. No, I needed lumber to build proper bed frames. Without Elena's body heat, sleeping directly on the cold ground at night was killing my back. So, using my ranky crafting skill and sheer stubbornness, I hammered together 2 rough bed frames. By the end of the day, my hands were covered in blisters, but sleeping off that freezing ground was worth all the painful blisters. I bought plenty of grilled lamb skewers for everyone. We gathered around the fire eating, and I watched Sarah slowly unwind. She still ate pretty fast. Classic survival habits, but she finally stopped tensing up. She kept sneaking quiet glances at me. The fear in those green eyes was finally fading. Everything was falling into place. Just think about it, a berserker and rogue under one roof. A dog and cat, both holding incredible potential. Life was good, so I paused the Black Forest expedition to focus on getting Sarah settled into the team. The plan was pretty simple. Feed her, train her, earn her trust as winter grew harsher. My Sev business was running low on herbs, so I assigned Elena to gather them. Her B-rank scavenging made her a complete natural. She would head out every morning with a basket, and somehow, she always came back, with plenty of time left for sword practice. Meanwhile, I put Sarah through basic fitness, using the same physical exercises I taught Alina. Sarah's flexibility and balance were quite shocking, just like a real cat, but her actual strength lagged far behind Alina's. No need to rush. After a few days of warm food, safe shelter, and patient training, Sarah's walls finally started to crumble. Then, one afternoon, she quietly muttered thank you when I handed her soup. That was my cue. That very evening, I officially asked her to join our team. She looked at me, then glanced at Elena, who was nodding along eagerly beside her. After a quiet pause, she said yes. I opened the handbook and pulled up her profile. Her stats confirmed exactly what I hoped. An agility level of 12, easily our highest, plus a stealth talent already 10% awakened. And her class options, seriously impressive. 6 options appeared instead of Elena's 3. 2 had crazy high compatibility scores. Between Thief and Ranger, I chose Ranger. Honestly, we desperately needed a backline shooter. My tiny sling was a total joke, but the Rangers, Scouting and Survival were a perfect fit. 4 forest runs, the instant I hit confirm. Sarah gasped as fresh power surged inside her. 3 skills unlocked instantly. Scouting C, Precision Aiming D, and Fencing F. Her double potential was already paying off. For gear, I couldn't afford heavy steel armor. Besides, it would only slow her down. So I got creative and took the bandits' old coats, having Alina beat the stuffing tight, then sewed thick beast hide over the chest. It was just lightweight padded armor, warm and offering decent protection. The process actually pushed my crafting skill to D rank. Next came the truly expensive part. I bought her a hunting bow for 10 silver, plus a whole quiver. My wallet was weeping. Wait till you see her first shots. Using her precision aiming skill, every single arrow slammed the target. On her very first try, they weren't all bullseyes, but 0 misses. I thought about my own trash sling accuracy and wanted to cry, but for different reasons. Elena's ears instantly drooped watching this. She clearly felt threatened. I quickly patted her head, reminding her, she's our frontline vanguard, who literally killed a winter wolf. Completely different roles. And you're the most special. Soon, her tail was spinning as she started shooting. Smug looks straight at Sarah. I also carved a short sword using the horn of the horn rabbit as Sarah's backup. She tried a few moves with her new fencing skill. Clumsy, but definitely functional. I advised her to focus on archery first. Then I coached her on shooting form, while correcting her stance and grip, relying on old videos I vaguely remembered. Some manual adjustments were needed, which turned Sarah's ears bright red. Meanwhile, Elena stood nearby, pouting so hard you could hang a bucket on her lip. Awkwardness aside, Sarah finally unlocked archery. F-rank basic, but with proper technique. Finally, looking at my team, a berserker with S-rank potential, and a ranger with double potential. I honestly felt like we were finally coming together. The Black Forest was waiting, and this time, we would be heading in as a proper 3-person squad. Business hit a major wall in our small town. People were not getting injured as much in winter, and sales absolutely tanked. Meanwhile, my teammates ate like bottomless pits. Elena trained harder, eating to match. Sarah was making up for years of near starvation. Funds were draining fast with nothing coming in. So, we had to brave the Black Forest again. We headed out at dawn. I had my round shield and a new spear. Elena wielded her massive sword, and Sarah wore her custom padded armor, carrying her hunting bow. On our way in, we met some local hunters, who warned us of an iron-backed boar roaming the western woods, which I definitely noted. I quickly coated everyone's weapons with my paralyzing mushroom poison, and then we set our formation. Sarah became our scout. I took the middle, with Elena guarding the rear. Honestly, her scouting skills were absolute next level. She spotted a fat forest pheasant hiding in the bushes, pulled back her bow, and dropped it with one perfect shot to the neck. Soon after, she nailed a horned rabbit, followed by another pheasant mid-flight. The girl was basically a hunting machine. Every shot hit its mark. Elena, meanwhile, was sulking hard, her lips pouting out further. With every kill Sarah claimed, Elena had absolutely nothing to fight. I patted her shoulder and gently reminded her that, when a real threat finally appeared, she would be the one we needed. Sure enough, a winter wolf appeared. But this time, it took one look and immediately bolted. Elena drew her sword, desperate to chase. But I quickly held her back. Never chase wolves into their own territory. We headed back home with 3 pheasants and 5 horned rabbits. Not bad for a safe, easy hunt. Back at the shack, I immediately started butchering our prey. My sharp memory kicked in once again. And just like that, a new skill? Butchering rank F. Another free life skill just from doing normal chores. I kept the fattest bird and 1 rabbit for dinner, then sold the rest in town. 2 pheasants, 4 rabbits, plus all the skins and horns, made 10 silver. And 50 copper, not wolf money. But there was 0 risk and great efficiency. Sarah's smart scouting was the key to the whole operation. I bought some supplies and headed back feeling awesome. But as I opened the door, this horrific smell slapped me. Elena had decided to cook us a surprise dinner. She had seen me add wild fruits to soup before. So, she literally dumped every single fruit she gathered that day straight into the pot with the chicken. Unripe ones, overripe ones, just random things that did not belong in food. Sarah was sitting right next to her, looking genuinely amazed by Elena's cooking skills. Both of them stared back at me with bright, eager eyes, just waiting for praise. I took a bite, and the taste was this explosion of sour, bitter, astringent, and totally mouth-numbing. Honestly, it was a crime against food. My stomach immediately wanted to reject the stuff. But those 2 hopeful faces were staring right at me. I forced a smile, which probably looked more like a painful grimace, and called it creative. Next time, I'm definitely doing the cooking, because after that massive kitchen disaster, I officially banned everyone from cooking. Instead, we headed right back to the Black Forest. Our plan, stick to the safe outer edges, No deep wandering. And honestly, Sarah was incredible. She spotted every target first, before they even realized we were there. Her arrows simply did not miss. 3 pheasants, 2 horned rabbits, and our biggest prize, a rare snow fox. It was pretty much invisible in the thick snow, but Sarah picked it out and sent a clean shot straight through its eye, leaving the precious fur totally perfect. Right then, her archery leveled up to rank. Alina, on the other hand, had absolutely zero to do, and she was getting pretty annoyed about it. Her only real kill was a chubby squirrel that ran past her feet. She instinctively sliced the poor thing clean in half with her sword. We all just stared at the 2 halves in silence. I awkwardly muttered, "Nice job," while silently crying over the ruined fur. Heading back, we randomly ran straight into Natasha. She was walking shirtless in the freezing cold, casually hauling a massive beast. An iron-backed boar over one shoulder, like it weighed nothing. Several fully grown men behind her were struggling to haul a smaller one together. Look at her go. She immediately flexed right in my face, showing off her muscles and her massive catch, giving me that smug look again. I praised her as quickly as possible, and practically ran away, dragging both girls with me. That snow fox skin was absolutely flawless. The local leather worker nearly lost his mind when he saw it. 20 silver coins, no haggling needed, with all our other games sold too. It was an incredibly profitable day. Over the next few days, hunting became routine. Sarah's sharp skills kept a steady flow of game coming, but then we hit the absolute jackpot with this massive, antlered deer shot with a poisoned arrow. The poison slowed it right down, and I finally got to unleash Alina. Sarah's tracking skills led us straight to the wounded deer, and I finished it off with 1 spear thrust. The 3 of us dragged that heavy beast back to town, where we sold it for 50 shiny silver coins. I was happily counting my share with a massive grin, right when a knock rattled the door. It was the local tax collector smiling ear to ear. He cheerfully told me hunting big beasts meant paying a 40% tax. 40% of my beautiful 50 silver coins. Seriously, you cannot escape the taxman even in a fantasy world. That collector's happy smile felt scarier than Natasha's giant tusks. He explained, the Black Forest belongs entirely to the local baron, so catching big beasts requires that 40%. Hunting tiny prey like birds and rabbits was totally fine, but wolves and deer mean paying up. I handed over 20 of my 50 silver coins, barely holding back my tears, but he did drop some useful info. A monthly hunting permit for 20 silver coins, which covers unlimited hunts of any size beast. Absolutely zero extra tax. I did the math fast. Just one big catch would pay it off and bring in pure profit. I dashed straight to the town office to buy it. The next morning we entered the forest oozing confidence. Permit in hand, Sarah's bow was ready. Elena was also itching to fight. And trust me, absolutely everything did. Sarah spotted a horned rabbit and shot it clean. But the exact second it hit the ground, the bushes erupted. A massive bear appeared. Brown fur, red eyes, completely starved from a bad hibernation. It burst out, swallowing the rabbit into bites, bones and all. Then it locked its eyes onto us. This wasn't some basic wolf, it was a straight-up monster, with a thick hide, huge muscles, and starving mad. Running was completely useless. These beasts outrun humans and easily climb trees. I screamed orders as Elena flanked left, while Sarah fell back to shoot. I jumped in front of Sarah with my shield raised. Sarah's first poisoned arrow strikes the bear's shoulder, but it barely pierces that thick hide. It just makes the monster angrier. The beast swings a massive paw my way. The impact feels like getting hit by a massive truck. I go flying straight through the air, crashing hard into the snow. My arm goes numb with blinding pain. Deep claw marks are gouged in my shield. Elena seizes the opening, slashing the beast's flank. But the wound is pretty shallow. The bear spins and swats the sword clean out of her hands. She goes tumbling through the snow. Sarah fires her final poison arrow, aiming for the eye, but it hits the cheek instead. Not fatal, but the poison from both arrows is working now. We just need time, but the bear charges her. She drops her bow. She pulls her horn dagger and begins to dodge. Her agility is unreal. She weaves through those claw strikes like a butterfly, stabbing the beast with her dagger whenever she can. She's barely holding him off, trust me. I drag my body up from the snow. Elena recovers way faster. She grabs her blade, even with her hands bleeding from the impact. She charges right back in. Don't fight head-on, I scream at them. The poison needs time to work, but the bear has had enough of her. It whips around with terrifying speed. She just finished her swing and cannot dodge. Those massive claws tear straight through her armor. Like paper, blood sprays across the white snow. Both Sarah and I scream her name in absolute terror. Elena is bleeding out, her face turning pale. Panic hits me for a second, then my mind snaps into focus. She cannot survive another hit in her current state. There is only one option left. Elena snaps, losing control, unleashing a completely savage, inhuman howl. Her eyes instantly turn blood red. That primal strength, somehow forcing her deep wounds to close. Muscles swell, veins burst. The beast hesitates for a split second, and that is enough. Elena grips her sword with both hands, slamming it down with devastating power. The steel slices clean through its paw, shattering the bone and carving deep into shoulder. I dash forward, driving my spear deep into its soft belly. Sarah slips in like a phantom, thrusting her sharp horn dagger straight into its eye. The creature completely loses its mind now, thrashing wildly, but Elena, in her frenzy, somehow manages to dodge, while striking back relentlessly, painting the white snow red with every strike. My spear. Sarah's poison dagger is finally taking effect. Within a minute, the monster finally crashes down. Then things get really weird. Elena still thinks she is in combat. Blinded by rage, she grabs the massive beast's leg and begins hauling the giant body toward home. Hundreds of pounds of pure muscle, yet she drags it like a freight train. Even lost in madness, her body only wants to bring the meat back to the one safe place she knows. Honestly, that scene completely breaks my heart right now. She managed to drag it almost to the town. Right before her frenzy finally fades, her mind clears as her cuts reopen, falling face first into the cold snow, out cold. I order Sarah to guard the carcass, scoop Elena up, sprinting for the old healers. Sprinting with all my might, thankfully the old healer welcomes us. He quickly pours some yellow fluid over her gashes, cleaning them instantly and stopping the blood flow. Then, he feeds her a strange red potion, and her flesh begins to visibly heal. Muscles were knitting together right before my eyes. It was like watching actual magic. My crappy cells were like playground mud compared to this. And then he handed me the bill. 1 gold coin for the cleaning potion, 3 gold coins for the healing potion. 4 gold coins in total, 80 silver. I nearly fainted. That was more money than I had ever held at once. The old man simply smirked, reminding me that real alchemy costs real money. And maybe now, I finally understood why. My little Sev business was just a cute hobby. I had to beg him to let me pay after selling the bear. He agreed, but said if I was short even 1 copper, he would disassemble the dog girl and sell her parts. I was pretty sure he was joking. But get this, I left that shop with my stomach in knots. 80 silver coins. I had no idea if a bear was even worth that much. But at least Elena's life was saved. And now, we had to figure out how to pay for it. Before the old man snapped, and decided to backtrack, while the old herbalist treated Elena. I grabbed Sarah and we dragged that enormous bear carcass straight to the main street. It caused an instant sensation. People crowded around us, stunned that the pretty boy and his weird girls had actually killed a forest bear. The town butcher pushed through the crowd and offered 100 silver on the spot. My heart jumped. That would cover Elena's medical bill, with some left over, but I still hesitated, hoping for an even better offer. Then, a well-dressed man stepped forward. The Baron's steward offered 150 silver. The Baron needed some impressive game to entertain his visiting nobles, and this bear was absolutely perfect. Nobody dared compete with the Baron's household, so the butcher backed off immediately. The steward's servants handed me a heavy coin purse and carted the bear away incredibly fast. Honestly, I was screaming with joy on the inside, while trying to look completely calm outside. I shoved the 150 silver coins into my coat, then booked it straight back to the herbalist. I counted out 80 silver coins onto his table, paying Elena's full bill. The old guy seemed quite happy with the quick payment. I asked for his secret recipe, already dreaming of getting insanely rich off of it. He just laughed in my face and told me those were actual alchemical potions, infused with real magic. He bought them from a master in Frost City. With 0 magical ability, I had absolutely no chance of making them. Well, so much for that dream. And here I was, looking up to him as some genius healer when he is somehow just a reseller. He handed me a small bottle of scar prevention ointment for Elena, warning me to keep her from doing anything active. As she recovered, I carried her sleeping body home, and gently laid her on our bed in the shack. Doing the quick math after paying that 80 silver bill, I still had 70 silver coins left, which was way more cash than I had ever held here. Seriously, talk about one incredibly wild day for our guy. Elena nearly bled out, and I spent a fortune on medicine, yet somehow made it all back and more, purely thanks to the Baron's timing. I smiled at Sarah, telling her the danger had passed, then collapsed as my adrenaline finally crashed. My entire body was aching, especially my left arm, where that bear had completely smashed my shield. All the pain I had been ignoring today hit me at once. Despite almost dying though, our rewards from this bear fight were absolutely massive. The system handbook rated it a rank. Yeah, our first rank, and the payout was huge. I received 2 stat points and 1 skill point, putting both stat points directly into toughness, bringing it to 10. That skill point went to upgrading my shield. Bash from F rank to E rank instantly. Instantly, new ways to use the shield flooded my mind. Elena's combat instinct jumped to 45%. Her swordsmanship rose to D rank, and she gained 2 stat points plus a skill point. I dumped those extra points into strength, and upgraded her berserk skill from E to D rank, easily her most important ability. Sarah's stealth talent hit 30% awakening, while also grabbing 2 points for a skill. I boosted her toughness since she was too fragile, upgrading her precision aiming from D to C rank. For the next 2 days, we entered rest mode. I played full-time nurse for recovering Elena, changing her bandages, and feeding her soft bread soaked in broth. She slept mostly but recovered incredibly fast. My own arm healed pretty fast too, thanks to my homemade salve. Honestly, that made me quite furious. If my cheap salve worked this amazingly well, I had been massively underpricing it, meaning I could have charged 10 times more for it. This entire time, Sarah actually spent her last 2 silver coins of pocket money on a big pile of dried fish, which she hoarded away like a squirrel. She would sit by Elena's bed, munching on fish and keeping watch. It was adorable. Once my arm recovered, I started some serious combat training, using Sarah as my sparring partner. With 12 agility compared to my 6, she absolutely demolished me. At first, her wooden practice stick would constantly zip past my shield from impossible angles, poking me everywhere, my arms, shoulders, and backside. She would tilt her head, saying, "Enemies won't slow down for you," with that little smirk. But I kept at it day after day. The shield techniques, locked in my head, slowly translated into muscle memory. My blocks got tighter, my timing improved, and I learned to use the shield's size to completely cut off her attack angles before she could even strike. After several days, something finally clicked. Sarah actually struggled to bypass my guard. Every single time she lunged, my shield was already there, and the second she retreated, my practice stick would snake out for a swift counter hit. Forcing her back, she tried circling around me, but I had learned to pivot with my shield, moving fast enough to track her, matching her evenly now. Me, the guy with total garbage stats, holding off a girl with 12 agility. That is the absolute magic of shield and thrust playstyle. Any true gamer knows this exact feeling. Reflexes are totally shot. Just hide behind a huge shield and poke. Turns out, it works in reality too. Sarah got fiercely competitive. Her cat-like eyes narrowed as she pressed her assault. "Do not get too cocky," she warned. Her attacks grew sharper, but I was grinning like an absolute idiot behind my shield. For the first time, I honestly felt like I could stand my ground in a fight, at least defensively. Checking out everyone's newly updated stats, our ragged little squad had come a long way. My toughness finally matched Elena's at 10. Elena's strength hit 12, with her combat instinct at 40%. Sarah's precision aiming successfully hit rank C. With her stealth at 30%, we were no longer desperate, starving, nobodies who had huddled together inside that freezing shack. We were finally becoming a true adventuring party. Elena healed up remarkably fast inside a few days. She was already bouncing around, begging to train, but I forced her to rest just a bit longer, while I kept sparring with Sarah. Once Elena recovered completely, I finally let her join practice. But fighting Elena now, that was absolute night and day. Sarah was just tricky. Her strikes constantly came from weird angles. Elena was raw, crushing power. Every swing of her weapon felt like getting struck by a literal sledgehammer, straight through my shield. My arms went completely numb after only a few blocks. I actually got pretty cocky, enough to challenge both of them to attack together. That confidence lasted maybe 10 seconds before I hit the dirt, literally begging them to stop the beating. Elena rushed over, genuinely worried she had broken me. So I shamelessly grabbed onto her hand, faking total agony just so she would rub my arms. Sarah saw right through my garbage, but smirked anyway. Then the Baron's steward suddenly showed up at our door. The Baron wanted a private meeting with me at the manor. I found the Baron waiting inside a warm stone hall surrounded by stuffed animal trophies, and resting in his hand was my old lighter, the exact one I sold ages ago, the one that became murder evidence. Before getting confiscated by guards, he asked about it, and I spun him the same old magical fire relic from the Far East fairy tale. He absolutely loved it. He even planned to offer it to the king as a rare gift. My cheap, disposable, plastic lighter was literally becoming royal tribute. Seriously, how wild is this world? But then his face got serious. His logging camp, the critical site supplying charcoal straight to Frost City, was currently being terrorized by a massive old bear. Workers were already being dragged off. The whole camp was shut down, and he needed this problem solved fast. He had already hired 2 veteran hunting parties, but since our squad had successfully killed a bear before, he wanted us on the scene as backup. The pay was 300 silver coins, with 100 upfront, right now. But the catch: the monster bear carcass goes to him. 300 silver was huge, double our last bear bounty. But an old beast terrorizing an entire logging camp meant it was probably way bigger, meaner, and far smarter than our previous target. Still, with 2 other pro teams joining the hunt, and that insane kind of money on the table, there was only one real answer. I accepted. I grabbed the heavy bag of 100 silver coins and headed home, excited but kind of nervous right now. Tomorrow morning we report to the manor. Before heading right back out to hunt our second bear, I dumped all 100 silver coins right on the table, and watched Elena and Sarah's eyes go wide. Elena immediately started biting the coins to check if they were real, her tail spinning like a propeller. Sarah was just quietly calculating exactly how many dried fish she could buy. But wait till they hear about our next 300 silver bear hunt. Elena forgot instantly how she almost died fighting a bear last time. She was ready to bolt out the door, but I reminded her how she was shaking behind me when that mirror thug showed up weeks ago. She just tilted her head and replied, with complete sincerity, because you are here now, since you are with us, I fear absolutely nothing. That really hit me right in the ego. I tried to play it cool but couldn't stop smiling. But first we needed gear upgrades. At the local blacksmith, I bought Elena a proper, brand new iron 2-handed sword for 18 silver. Her old sword was pretty chipped, and almost ruined from that last bear fight. She swung it a few times, her ears trembling with joy. Then I bought 3 iron chest plates, crude curved metal pieces that strap right over your armor. Ugly but pretty functional, 12 silver each, so one for everyone. Plus some high-quality arrows for Sarah. Half our deposit was already gone before we even started. No regrets here. Survival gear is not where you cut costs. That night, I grilled some lamb skewers to boost morale. Both girls ate until they could barely even move, constantly praising my cooking between bites. Later, Elena tried sneaking over to warm my bed as thanks, but Sarah smacked her with her tail, hissing, insisting that I needed proper rest before fighting a bear. Elena pouted as she retreated to her blanket. Next morning, gear up, iron plates secured over our armor, gear packed, poison arrows ready as we head to the manor. 2 other hunter teams are already waiting. First up is Natasha and her giant crew. She flexes her muscles and winks. I immediately look away to avoid eye contact. But this next duo, total mystery to us. A tall guy in heavy armor holding a massive greatsword, alongside a fast, agile girl wielding twin short swords. Sarah whispers they aren't locals, likely wandering mercenaries. The Baron's steward calls everyone together and sends us off with supply horses. Natasha's loud group takes the lead. The quiet duo follows closely behind, while my squad covers the rear. I glance over at Elena. She's holding her new sword, buzzing. Sarah scans our paths with sharp, alert eyes. I tell them to stay alert. Watch your backs. Let's move. We follow the guides through the deep snow, on a trail toward the logging camp. They say all the lumberjacks are trapped inside their cabins, too terrified to move. These pack horses we brought are just keeping them from starving. Along the snowy trail, Natasha drops back to join us, asking how I trained Elena and Sarah. But before I speak, Elena jumps in, fiercely defending my teaching style and training, listing every win we've had. Sarah just nods in agreement. Natasha watches their complete devotion with interest. giving me glances that make my skin crawl. Meanwhile, the silent pair in back keeps quiet the entire time, though that dual sword girl is definitely listening closely. But once we approach the logging camp, the air starts smelling like timber and blood. Sarah quickly climbs a tree to look ahead, and turns pale. There is a bear in there, a massive white beast. Suddenly, the wind shifts, carrying our scent, following that fresh horse scent directly to camp. A sudden roar shakes the woods. Sarah screams from above. It's charging us. Everyone immediately scrambles to fight. Sarah draws a poison-tipped arrow. Natasha's hunters spread out, raising their bows. Even the quiet pair finally draw weapons. The man grips a pretty massive greatsword. She draws twin short blades. Then I saw it, and honestly, my blood just froze. This creature was nothing like our previous fight. It stood well over 3 meters tall when rearing up. Ghostly, bone-white fur covered its body. Blood-red eyes staring, each heavy step shaking the earth, leaving deep, heavy craters in the snow. If I try blocking this monster with my shield, I'll literally be crushed into paste. Sarah's poisoned arrow strikes its shoulder, but it barely sinks into that thick layer of fat. The other hunters launch javelins and arrows. Most just bounce off. Only Natasha's thrown spear actually punches deep into its chest, forcing the giant beast to stumble back. Then, the massive white bear rears up high, and violently slams both paws into the snow. Natasha screams at everyone to dodge. I didn't even understand why, but trusting her instinct, I quickly shove Alina aside. We both dive straight into the snow. A split second later, gigantic stone spikes explode up from the ground, right where we were just standing. Every spike is half a person tall, razor sharp and shooting up like deadly pillars. They miss us by mere inches. I can feel the freezing air radiating off them, still lying on my back in the snow, heart pounding wildly, staring at the terrifying forest of spikes behind me. It uses magic, with actual, lethal combat skills, no longer hunting. This is a boss fight, and I'm seriously starting to doubt our survival. The Baron's 300 silver wasn't a reward. It was basically just funeral money. The beast shocked everyone. Right after launching those earth spikes, it whipped around and bolted into the deep forest, completely giving up on the fight. The mystery duo moved. Our swordsman bolted straight after it, with the twin blade girl right on his heels. Natasha slapped my back hard enough to completely knock me flat, yelling that this was an earth bear. It couldn't spam those deadly ground spikes back to back. We had to end this now, otherwise it would wipe out our whole camp, and then terrorize the whole town. So we ran. Even wounded, that beast was insanely fast, vanishing right into the brush. But the old hunter had years of tracking experience, and Alina had her rank C skills active. By sniffing out the trail, we managed to stay on it. Sarah was scouting from the canopy, spotting every single one of the bear's ambush spots. Before they succeeded, the monster realized it couldn't lose us. Then things got real. It charged straight for us. Everyone jumped in. Natasha's squad let their last javelins fly. The greatsword guy landed some truly massive blows, leaving deep, bone-cracking gashes. His partner darted around, slicing up every weak spot. Alina circled, hunting for a gap. Sarah rained down arrows. I held the rear guard, shield raised. That beast was absolutely covered in deep cuts, slowing down from poison and bleeding. We thought we had it won. Nope. But then it roared, slamming its massive paws down once more. And this time, earth spikes exploded outward in a ring, like a shockwave, impaling one poor hunter through the leg. The twin blade girl took a savage gash straight across her side. Her partner grabbed her, pulling her clear, hurriedly feeding her a healing potion, better than the potion from the old herbalist. Elena was healed up and back on her feet in seconds. But the beast was not done yet, raising massive paws, and violently smashed its own ground spikes, sending razor-sharp stone shards flying, exploding everywhere now. Like shrapnel, everyone got hit. Sarah was safe, up in her tree. But we got completely shredded. I quickly threw up my shield, pulling Alina safely behind me. The sturdy shield caught most of those stones, yet plenty still cut through my legs. Alina was hit, and Natasha bled everywhere, desperately shielding her face with her arms. One hunter was down, possibly already dead. The mystery duo was drenched in blood, yet still standing, the man shielding his injured partner. After that devastating double attack, look, that white beast is finally exhausted, panting heavily, but so was everyone else. Almost half our entire force was now out. The hunters were done, and Natasha wounded. That young duo was pretty battered. My team was somehow in the best shape. thanks to my shield, though we all bled. Here we go, the beast is exhausted, but if we give it time to recover, we are all dead. I looked at Elena and ordered, "Go berserk," and Elena went berserk. The very moment I ordered it, her D-rank berserk was noticeably stronger than before. She charged the wounded white bear like a demon, swinging her new iron sword with massive force, to easily match that greatsword guy. Deep cuts opened on the beast with every hit. I pushed right forward with shield and spear, striking its open wounds. Natasha and the other duo leapt in too. Together, we overwhelmed the exhausted beast. One final howl, and the massive white bear crashed down hard. This time, when I yelled for Elena to stop, she actually listened. The red faded from her eyes almost immediately. The upgraded berserk was way more controllable. She collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Luckily, I was right there to catch her. The handbook rated this mission Class B, and it handed out rewards to everyone. I put my stat points straight into strength, and upgraded my shield bash to rank D. Elena's combat instinct hit 55%, while her berserk skill jumped to C rank. Sarah's stealth reached 40%, her precision aiming climbed to C rank, and combat pushed her archery up to rank D. While everyone recovered, I passed around my homemade salves to the injured hunters, totally free of charge. It cost me pretty much nothing but bought serious goodwill. Natasha even pulled out a very pricey healing potion for the poor hunter, whose leg got completely impaled, saving his life. The mystery duo finally introduced themselves. Meet Kai and Lena, travelers from Frost City heading south. Kai and I hit it off right away. He told me about the world outside, about city-states and cultures far beyond the frozen north. It was the first actual information I had gotten about what lay outside this tiny town. Then he asked why I traveled with two unusual girls. I immediately launched into my standard speech, praising their unique, stunning beauty. And get this, Kai's eyes totally lit up and he called me a kindred spirit. He leaned in, saying he understood my feelings perfectly, because he felt the exact same way about the pure bond between men, and that he and his male partner were heading south, where those relationships were much more accepted. My jaw literally hit the floor. He thought I was like him. So I very politely, yet very firmly, clarified that my interests were strictly in the cute animal ears and fluffy tails department, not the muscular swordsman department. He seemed a bit disappointed, but took it pretty well. After that, we dragged the dead bear back to camp. The workers cheered when they saw the beast was dead. I caught some of the workers whispering the giant bear had only attacked because the greedy baron took her cub as a fancy pet for some princess, just a mother protecting her baby. Honestly, it left a bitter taste, but the crisis was over and the workers were safe. Returning to the baron's estate, we collected the final 200 silver coins. At our 100 deposit minus gear costs, I was sitting on a nice little fortune. Kai, Lena, and Natasha's group went straight to the healer for treatment, while my own team hit the market. I told Alina and Sarah to buy whatever they wanted. No limits today, meat. They both shouted at the exact same time. We bought tons of fresh meat, some crisp vegetables, and a small keg of ale. Back home, I've whipped up a massive victory feast, steaming hot stew and sizzling grilled steaks. Cheap beer flowed. Lena was weak but ate like crazy. Sarah kept trying to act all casual, while absolutely destroying skewer after skewer, with a warm, full belly, a heavy coin purse, and to loyal girls, who fought beside me against that monster bear. You know, I felt great about life, as long as I could forget that specific swordsman, who somehow saw me as a fellow traveler, on his weird romantic quest. Before heading out, Kai treated us to dinner at the local tavern. He still didn't understand why I was refusing to visit Frost City, to register as an official adventurer. He kept saying our skills were plenty high. I just claimed I still needed more training. Honestly, though, I was just too comfortable, hiding out in this tiny town. The next morning, Kai and Lena headed south. He invited me to tag along someday. I smiled and waved, secretly hoping our paths would never cross again. Nice guy, but his actual kindred spirit. Misunderstanding. That was something I desperately wanted to escape. After the bear hunt, our reputation skyrocketed. Nobody dared insult us to our faces anymore. But get this, the town whispers got way crazier. People actually decided I had a fetish for ugly things. Apparently, it was some kind of rare disease. I almost exploded when I heard that gossip. These people's beauty standards were beyond saving. I channeled my raw frustration into hunting. We spent over a month pushing deep into the Black Forest, hunting down wolves and other forest game. Money wasn't really an issue anymore. I even stopped selling off our spoils. Then I noticed a serious problem. The adventurer handbook stopped giving out rewards. No matter how many beasts we killed, absolutely nothing happened. Zero response. We had completely outgrown this starter area. The handbook demanded actual, real challenges, not these routine hunts. Our growth had completely stalled. So, you know what that meant. Leave Frost Twin Town and become true, elite adventurers. I finally brought it up that evening by the fire. Sarah jumped at the plan right away. She absolutely hated this town and its cruel stares. Elena looked around our dusty little shack, the place we had patched up together from nothing, shaping it into a real home. She stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she looked right at me and spoke. "Wherever you are is home." That hit me hard. In the warm firelight, we drifted closer. Her lips were so close. I leaned in him. Sarah's sharp cough shattered the whole moment. She stood there with arms crossed, glaring. "If we are actually leaving, let's decide already and stop wasting time." The romantic mood was completely ruined. Elena turned bright red, her ears drooping. I wanted to scream. We started packing everything that night. Weapons, gear, gold, anything too heavy to carry was left behind. Then, absolute dead of night, Sarah violently shook us awake. Something was wrong. I listened closely, clashing metal, screaming in the distance, inhuman roaring, noises that had no business echoing in a sleeping town. We quickly threw on our armor, grabbed our weapons and stepped outside. The town was fully ablaze, multiple buildings burning down, painting the dark night sky blood red. Sounds of brutal fighting, crying and terrifying howling filled the night air. Frostwine Town was literally being torn to shreds. Elena gripped her sword, her voice shaking, asking what was happening. Sarah's cat eyes narrowed. "Nothing good," I muttered, staring at the hellish scene. My face grim. Whatever was attacking this town, we were about to find out. When I saw those flames, my first instinct, just run. Grab the girls immediately, take the cash and vanish into the Black Forest. We were leaving anyway, right? But wait, I actually thought of the people. Natasha, who saved us from those savage thugs. The miner who bought my salves. That grumpy herbalist who saved Alina's life. This place wasn't entirely bad. Quietly cursing under my breath, I made my decision. I sent Sarah to scout. She was incredibly fast, dead silent, with the sharpest eyes. Alina and I quickly doused the fire in our shack, slipping into the shadows outside, waiting patiently for Sarah to return. 3 bandits came strolling right toward our house, laughing loudly about loot and women. They had no clue we were waiting. Watch. The moment one reached for the door handle, I gave the signal. My spear drove right through his back, before he could even turn around. Elena cleanly decapitated the second with one swift strike. The third guy tried to run. She chased him down and took his head off, too. 3 kills in seconds. But what shocked me was my reaction afterward. No nausea, no horror, pure adrenaline pumping. Months of hunting beasts had definitely changed my soul. Elena gasped for air, looking pretty excited. That berserker class was really warping her mind. We stashed the bodies and waited patiently. Then Sarah returned, looking incredibly pale. Her report was devastating. Nearly 100 bandits had invaded, slaughtering everyone, burning and pillaging everything. But get this, they actually brought an ogre. A massive beast, easily over 3 meters tall, dragging a giant spiked club. Sarah literally watched it crush Sheriff Hank with just one hit. Then it snatched his body up and ate him. I completely froze up. Their main target was the manor of the Baron. Most villagers were shivering inside their homes, but Natasha was actually fighting back, defending the local tavern with a few brave volunteers. And guess what? The monster was heading straight for her. Elena grabbed my arm, her eyes flooding with tears. "Natasha saved me. She is a good person. We cannot let her die." And she was right. Natasha truly protected us when we had absolutely nothing. Repaying that debt was non-negotiable, so I immediately prepared. I gathered every single vial of paralysis poison in my stash, all my stockpiled reserves, mushroom toxins from our forest trips. We coated every single arrow Sarah had. Elena's sword, my spear. Everything was dripping venom. I faced my crew. They were ready. Listen to me carefully. We only distract and harass. Do not even think of fighting that thing head-on. Understood. They both nodded. I raised my poison-coated spear high, pointing it toward the burning plaza, and ordered them to move. We quietly slipped through the flames, using the heavy smoke as cover, passing slaughtered bodies. Then we spotted 8 bandits, herding dozens of crying townspeople. right toward the manor, intending to use them all as human shields. Up on a rooftop, Sarah signaled us to force the gates open. I immediately gave the order to attack. Sarah's very first arrow went clean through the eye of a bandit. Instant death. Her second arrow dropped another. Before they could even figure out where the shots came from, Alina and I charged in from two different directions. She met a bandit's swinging sword head-on and completely overpowered him. Seriously, her strength rivaled Natasha's now, splitting him wide open from shoulder to chest. Then she decapitated the next one before he could react. I took on two bandits at once, relying on my shield and thrust technique. One sword bounced cleanly off my shield, while my poison spear found his side, but the other grabbed my spear, so I dropped it and pulled my dagger, stabbing him right in the gut while he was off balance. Then I slit his throat. I finished off both to make absolutely sure they were dead. Once it was over, I was completely drenched in blood. The rescued townspeople just stared at us. The ugly freaks and the weirdo they had mocked for months had just saved their lives. But I had no time for their guilt. I told them to find somewhere safe and lock themselves in while we pushed toward the tavern, where Sarah had spotted Natasha fighting earlier. Trust me, it was an absolute nightmare. Natasha and her hunters had actually been drinking inside when this attack started. They had killed the first wave but had no proper weapons, just stolen swords and basic kitchen knives. Bandit archers pinned them inside. They had retreated to the second floor, but then the massive ogre arrived. It smashed right through the tavern's front door. Like it was paper, the thing was terrifying. Over 3 meters tall, carrying a heavy spiked club, totally caked in blood and brain matter. One casual swing had turned a man, and the table he was desperately hiding behind, into bloody pulp. Then the bandits set the floor on fire, trapping everyone upstairs. We blindsided them from behind. Sarah targeted their archers from above, while Elena and I charged those on the ground. We wiped them out instantly. Natasha saw us from the second floor window. She looked so relieved, but not for long. A massive ogre burst screaming from the tavern. It yanked Sarah's poisoned arrow from its neck. That arrow had gone in pretty deep, meaning the lethal toxin was already inside. But get this, the beast barely even blinked. It swung that massive, terrifying club and lunged directly right at us. I yelled at Elena to get back. There was no way to fight this monster head-on. Not yet. The poison needed time to spread. Assuming it even worked on a giant beast. Against a rampaging ogre, we had one play. Keep your distance, run, and kite it. Just let the venom do the job. Sarah kept firing from high above. Another toxic arrow pierced the monster's neck, right beside that first deep wound. The beast roared, tearing the shaft out, but the lethal venom remained inside. Its sprinting and absolute fury only circulated the poison much faster. Within moments, it took hold. The massive ogre stumbled. Its heavy feet dragged as it swung wildly, missing us by miles. Then it crashed down hard like a falling building, shaking the very dirt beneath us. It struggled to stand, but failed. The paralysis completely shut its body down. Honestly, no heroic duel or flashy moves here. Just cold patience and some smart poison. I gave the signal, and Elena stepped up, raising her blood-stained blade with both hands, and drove it right through the ogre's neck. The head flew off, and I, still burning with absolute rage, I impaled the severed head on my spear tip, and carried it back to where Natasha, together with the other survivors, right outside the burning tavern. When I dropped it at their feet, dead silence, even from Natasha, her hunters, the townspeople. Every single one stared at us, like they were finally seeing us for the first time. The ugly girls they had mocked for months had just slaughtered this absolute most terrifying monster any of them had seen. With the ogre dead, the remaining bandits quickly scattered. We helped Natasha and her group push toward the Baron's manor, where the main assault had already been successfully repelled. Baron's walls had held, and the bandits had fled. The Baron kindly invited us inside, sharing his healing supplies with all the wounded. But get this, he tells us this raid wasn't random. Someone had actually sent these organized, heavily equipped bandits, just to destroy the town's charcoal supply. Political enemies. Next, he offered me the job of town sheriff, taking over for the one the ogre slaughtered. I turned him down immediately. We were leaving. He accepted it gracefully and handed us a farewell gift. 30 gold coins, 600 silver, plus 3 fine wool undergarments. Honestly, I was ready to walk away empty-handed, so this felt like an incredible bonus. 30 gold coins. That meant we could buy real emergency healing potions. Talk about having literal extra lives. The handbook rated our whole crazy night and a rank. Crazy rewards started rolling in. I got 2 stat points and a skill point. Plus I learned a new move, Shield Slam. It actually stuns enemies on impact. Immediately, I pushed my strength to 10, and upgraded my shield bash to C rank. Elena's combat instinct hit 60%. She unlocked Cleaving Strike, a brutal sweep that hits multiple targets at once. Her swordsmanship finally jumped to C rank, so I boosted her strength and toughness even higher. Sarah's stealth hit 55%, unlocking Rapid Shot. She can fire 3 arrows in rapid succession now. Plus, her precision aiming officially reached B rank. I boosted her agility and toughness. We finally said goodbye to Natasha. She slammed my shoulder hard enough to leave bruises, and threatened to track me down if I ever mistreated the girls. Elena's eyes grew red saying goodbye. Even Sarah gave a small, quiet nod. Back at our tiny little shack, Sarah quietly wiped the dried blood off our faces. The small room felt warm and peaceful. I took one final look around the place. The cracked walls we had patched with mud. The simple fire pit keeping us alive. Those hay beds, where we slept through so many freezing nights. Then I turned away without any hesitation. Let's move. Our real journey starts now. Frost City, the capital of the Northern Kingdom, was on a different level. Massive gray stone walls covered in thick ice. A steady flow of merchants and brave adventurers. At the gates, guards wore high-quality fur armor, checking everyone trying to enter. Elena's jaw dropped while Sarah's eyes widened. I just silently shook my head. If they thought this place was impressive, they'd completely lose their minds. Seeing skyscrapers from my old world. Getting past the gate was easy enough. The guards gave Elena and Sarah some looks, but didn't cause any trouble. Guards in big cities have seen everything. The cold inside was absolutely brutal, somehow even worse than back in Frostwind. Now, I understood why the Baron's charcoal was so crucial, because without fire, this frozen city would be unlivable. My immediate priority was finding a place to stay, and that is where reality hit. Even at the cheapest flophouse, beds cost 30 copper coins a night. A private room cost 1 silver per person. For 3 people, that would burn 90 silver monthly just on sleeping. Yeah, absolutely not. Staying in a hotel meant no cooking, and when we tried the local northern-style stew at a cheap joint, even Sarah, who literally used to eat garbage, scrunched up her nose at how bad it was. Elena whispered that my own cooking was way better. I had totally spoiled them. Time to turn on the charm. I started chatting up some friendly-looking older ladies at the local market, asking around for cheap rentals. Honestly, that pretty boy talent worked absolute wonders. They honestly could not resist. Gushing with suggestions, I found a small, cozy stone and wood house, tucked away in a quiet outer city corner. Just one room, a massive wooden bed, and a real fireplace for both heating and cooking. 10 silver a month, the firewood was extra. I paid 3 months upfront, 30 silver total. We immediately started cleaning the whole place. I made Elena take the disgusting, nasty old hay bedding and burn it in the hearth. Next, I sent her off for firewood, while Sarah and I went supply shopping. I splurged onto really thick, cozy patchwork for blankets instead of cheap hay. 20 silver total, but they would last longer and not breed bugs. We also grabbed a brand new cooking pot, bowls, and salt, smoked ham, bread, fresh vegetables, and flour. Back home, I quickly fired up the hearth and whipped up a proper ham and vegetable stew, using some real seasoning. The girls basically melted from pure happiness eating it. After weeks of stale travel rations and awful restaurant food, this home-cooked meal was an absolute luxury. And then came the sleeping situation. Yep, 1 bed, 3 people. I cleared my throat and suggested we would have to share. Strictly for warmth and saving space, I very graciously offered to sleep right on the edge, just to protect them, and Elena agreed without a second thought. Elena was pretty used to huddling up since our early days. Sarah shot me this look that basically said she knew exactly what I was up to. Yet, she didn't object either. So there I was, lying on incredibly soft, warm furs with Elena fast asleep on my left, breathing so gently, while Sarah curled up on my right, her back facing me. The subtle, sweet scent of the girls and warm fur filled the entire room. I just stared up silently, torn between feeling pretty lucky and seriously tested. This new chapter of our adventure was certainly off to a comfortable start. Well, I woke up with massive dark circles under my eyes. Sharing a bed with 2 girls sounds pretty amazing, right? But actually sleeping, that's another story entirely. After a quick breakfast of some reheated ham and soup with bread chunks, we headed straight for the Adventurers Guild. The place was pretty impressive. Solid stone construction, complete with a sword and shield banner hanging out front. Inside, it was absolutely packed with armed people drinking, bragging, and checking the joke boards. The air held this lovely, intense mix of beer, tobacco, leather, and sweaty body odor. Poor Elena practically shrank into herself the second we entered. Sarah did the exact opposite, chin up, eyes sharp, radiating a don't mess with me vibe. But honestly, nobody cared about us anyway. In this line of work, raw strength is everything. Nobody cares what you look like as long as you get results. Behind the registration desk sat this woman who was, well, insanely muscular, with arms thicker than my legs. But surprisingly, her voice was incredibly gentle. Registration was 20 silver coins per person. I nearly choked 60 silver total for the three of us, but she quickly explained that it actually included a magic test with a crystal ball, along with official ISEKAI'D cards, recognized across the entire continent. Basically, a one-time professional certification for our career. Once she put it like that, I swallowed the pain and paid the fee. We each touched the crystal ball. It glowed, scanning our raw abilities, and produced metal cards with our stats. For me, the results were pretty humbling. My card read Ander, Shield Warrior, Strength C rank, Adventurer rank F. Helena got B rank, Strength S Suragotsi. Turns out, I was the weakest on my own team. Too bad these cards do not track tactical genius, or the guy who bosses everyone else around. The receptionist did mention though, we were the strongest rookies they had seen lately, which felt pretty nice. But she warned us that replacements cost another 20 silver coins. I gripped mine like it was pure gold. Since we were F-rank rookies, we could only take beginner jobs. I scanned the quest board pretty carefully. Sarah was staring at high-paying, dangerous ones, but I strictly stuck to my philosophy. Safety first, then grow. And soon, I found the perfect starter quest. Wipe out 20 to 30 wild goblins, harassing a small village called Stone Creek. It was half a day west, paying 20 silver, plus dinner with the village chief's daughter. That dinner part was pretty weird, but goblins are the ultimate beginner enemy in literally every fantasy story ever. Low risk, great practice. Absolutely perfect for our very first job. So I ripped the quest notice off the board, and just like that, our journey finally begins. But before setting out on our first official quest, I made sure we were fully stocked up. 3 healing potions at 3 gold coins each. That is 9 gold coins gone instantly. Watching that money vanish physically hurt my soul, but dying would hurt much more. Next up was weapons. Elena's old iron sword was chipped and dull from all our previous fights, so I bought her a nice carbon-hardened steel sword for 80 silver. She lovingly stroked the blade like a puppy's tail. Sarah went wild, snagging a fine rapier for 50 silver to replace her crude horn dagger. I got a short sword for 30 silver, giving me better reach behind my shield, while trading my worn round shield for a bigger kite shield costing 40 silver. My gold stash took a massive hit, but this gear upgrade was totally worth it. Next, we traveled to Stone Creek Village, a quiet settlement with barely 30 houses. The desperate village chief pleaded, because goblins kept raiding them, snatching crops and chickens, and even their salted fish. They even nearly took the prettiest girl. He pointed her out proudly, revealing a muscular woman with bright rosy cheeks, effortlessly lifting a barrel twice her size. She flashed me a very shy, wide smile with all her teeth. I fought hard not to flinch. The quest description mentioned a reward of dinner with his daughter. Now, I finally got why they called that a bonus. This world's beauty standards are terrifying. We learned where the pests hide, the North Woods, and marched out, tracking fresh footprints through snow. We pushed into the woods while Sarah scouted, but she grew pretty careless, assuming simple goblins were beneath her. Then, a pack of 8 angry goblins suddenly burst from the bushes, green-skinned and ugly, pointy-eared pests armed with cheap spears. I braced for impact, but they didn't charge. Instead, they pointed at me and shrieked happily. Pretty human. Grab him for the boss. Soft white skin. Wait, they seriously wanted me for my looks. Apparently, I'm gorgeous in goblin standards. Before I could even process this weird insult, Elena absolutely lost her mind. Elena did not even need to go berserk. Just the thought of anyone taking her Ander sent her sprinting right at the goblins with her brand new steel blade, eyes burning with pure fury. No one touches her team leader, apparently, especially not some green punks who think he looks pretty. Their fight with the goblins outside lasted barely 5 seconds. Eleanor was furious. They called Ander pretty and tried to grab him, slicing two in half before they could even blink. Sarah dodged a flying arrow and impaled another right through the throat. Ander barely had time to lift his shield before it ended. After harvesting their ears for proof, they tracked the remaining monsters to a hillside cave. The entrance was extremely narrow and dark, a perfect spot for goblin ambushes, but deadly for them if they got careless. Ander took the lead with his shield and sword. The tight passage meant his massive kite shield blocked nearly the entire path. Goblins rushed him with crude spears and stone axes. Absolutely everything bounced off his shield, while he coolly stabbed them through gaps. Honestly, this is basically a cheat code. Block and stab, block and stab. Every single strike was fatal. A few tried flanking through side paths, but Sarah was firmly guarding the rear. Using her night vision and sharp rapier skills, she picked them off easily in that cramped space. Her sword skills had finally reached rank D, and it showed. Meanwhile, Elena spent the entire dungeon run holding a torch behind Ander, watching them fight with absolutely nothing left to hit. Her fluffy tail drooped lower with every monster that fell to another person's blade. They finally reached the main chamber, a trash-filled cavern reeking of pure rot. Ander searched around but found zero valuables, just some stolen moldy grain, shriveled turnips, and rock-hard salted fish. Turns out, these goblins didn't have a single coin. Then, Elena spotted a hidden hole behind the trash. I squeezed inside and found a smaller cave. Inside were a dozen goblin babies, drinking milk from a massive sow pig. Goblins breed with pigs. I immediately decided to never think about that again. I ordered them all wiped out. Sarah moved in without hesitating, but Alina froze. She cried that they were just babies and it felt too cruel. I snapped at her harder than I ever had before. I told her these monsters grow up to raid innocent villages. They will slaughter people if she cannot handle this. She cannot be an adventurer. She had to show she wasn't soft-hearted. Trust me, it's tough. It was brutal. She went completely pale, her hands shaking, but she actually did it. Afterward, my voice softened. I told her she did well, patting her head. She had to realize that showing mercy to these monsters only gets people killed. Then I torched the entire cave. Bodies, trash, everything. All of it. No goblins would ever be able to use this nest again. Back at the village, the chief was absolutely thrilled. He handed over 20 silver and some bonus smoked meat. Then, he started bringing out his daughter for our promised dinner. One look at this massive, barrel-shouldered farm girl walking over, and I immediately grabbed both of my teammates. We bolted straight out of that village at top speed. I yelled back that we had urgent business elsewhere. The chief and his daughter just stood there, stunned, watching us disappear into the distance. Soon, we settled into a solid routine in Frost City. Wake up, cook breakfast, head to the guild. We grabbed whatever low-level quests they had available. Sewer rats, goblins, even delivering cheesy love letters for nobles. Nothing glamorous, but that steady income helped us save 300 silver, while easily covering our expenses. We finally climbed up to rank, just by grinding out so many jobs. That endless grind actually leveled up our skills. My shield slam, Elena's cleaving strike, and Sarah's rapid shot finally jumped from F to E. Honestly, it wasn't from system rewards. Just honest, hard practice against weak mobs. Then, I spotted a quest that seriously got me excited. Escorting to young alchemy guild apprentices, straight into the northern ice plains, to collect rare herbs. The pay was decent, 50 silver each for 8 days, but that cash wasn't why I wanted it. The words alchemy guild and those apprentices were what actually caught my eye. Ever since seeing those miraculous healing potions, I had been absolutely desperate to learn real alchemy. This mission could be my actual way in. Even just watching and chatting with real students would be incredibly valuable, so I instantly grabbed it. Then, harsh reality hit us. The northern ice plains were going to be freezing. Our current gear simply wouldn't cut it. I took the girls shopping and spent an absolute fortune. Insulated leather jackets with layered, thick padding, 60 silver each, 180 total. Windproof, fur-lined cloaks, 20 silver each, 60 total. New fur-padded helmets, 15 each, 45 total. Insulated gloves and reinforced boots, 20%, 60 total. My savings took a seriously devastating hit, but freezing to death would be way worse. The next morning at the Alchemy Guild, the other 3 escorts were already waiting there, fellow rankers in pretty worn-out gear. They took one look at our shiny, brand new gear, and immediately started muttering about rich kids. I ignored them. Two nervous-looking apprentices slowly walked out, followed by a mysterious figure in a hooded robe, with a cute bear cub trotting at her feet. Naturally, the other escorts immediately protested. The quest only specified 2 apprentices, not 3 people plus a wild animal. The mysterious hooded girl introduced herself as Lydia. Then, she casually pulled out a fistful of gold, offering every single person 3 gold as a bonus. And that was on top of regular pay. We're talking 60 extra silver coins per person. All complaints vanished instantly. Everyone was suddenly smiling, praising her little bear cub, and volunteering to carry her bags. I was pretty curious about this incredibly wealthy noble and her pet bear, but I kept my questions to myself. Honestly, 3 gold coins bought a lot of silence. We all piled into a covered wagon, pulled by 2 strong horses, making a strange caravan. 3 highly equipped veteran fighters, 3 cheap escorts, 2 apprentices, 1 loaded mystery girl, and a baby bear, all heading north into the frozen unknown. That ride up north was brutally cramped. 9 people and a little bear crammed inside one cart. Alina and Sarah pulled their helmets down low to hide their ears. To avoid trouble, Lydia stayed hooded in her corner, quietly petting her little bear cub. But I had already used my appraisal eye on her. Her real name was Lydia Frost, the exact same surname as the Northern Kingdom's royalty, boasting rank-level combat potential. The handbook basically called her a noble young lady, currently sneaking around in disguise. And honestly, with all the gold she threw around, plus that rare pet bear, it was pretty obvious. She was almost certainly a royal princess. But I kept that massive discovery to myself, because knowing royal secrets gets people killed. Instead, I focused on my actual goal here, starting up a chat with the 2 apprentices. They were pretty young and talkative. I quickly learned that herbalists work strictly with natural plant properties to create basic medicines, which was basically what I'd been doing myself. But alchemists, on the other hand, are folks who possess minor magical talent, using magic to purify and fuse raw ingredients into pretty powerful high-grade potions. No wonder healing potions cost an absolute fortune. They need extremely rare materials, plus high magic skills to make. Enchanting is a whole other level of alchemy. But the apprentices shut down when I tried prying for actual recipes. Turns out the guild keeps their secrets locked tight. I even grabbed a completely random skill, just from chatting with our wagon driver. Wagon driving F rank, totally useless for now. But who knows, because on the 3rd day, the trail became completely blocked. So we abandoned our wagon at a border town and marched straight into the brutal ice plains. It was just a blinding white wasteland, deep snow and freezing winds. Even the pale sun offered 0 warmth, despite carrying highly expensive gear. The icy cold bit deep that night. We set up camp inside a sheltered rocky hollow. I whipped up some hot oak porridge over our fire. Then Lydia shared a story that caught my attention. She spoke of an ancient witch who fell for a northern prince, but looked far too bizarre to win him. So she unleashed a spell that flipped the whole kingdom's standards of beauty. Suddenly her unique look became the absolute ideal. While perfectly average people were called ugly, she got the prince and lived happily ever after. The crew laughed it off as mere folklore. But hearing this story from a girl bearing a literal royal surname, honestly, this did not sound like fiction. This sounded like real history disguised as legend. The downright bizarre standards of this place might actually trace back to some ancient magical curse. Yeah, that was a lot to process. The next morning, we braved an ice canyon searching for target herbs, frost mushrooms. They only grow inside deep cracks along ice walls. The apprentices worked incredibly slowly and carefully. Lydia seemed distracted, scanning the deep canyon, almost like she searched for something specific. I got bored and started poking around myself, and I actually found a frost mushroom, cold to the touch, radiating heavy chill. My sharp memory immediately identified its cold resistance properties and detoxifying properties, even edible in small amounts. I pocketed it. Then Sarah's warning call echoed from above. Shield up, brace yourself, something was coming. The exact same snow wolves from earlier returned tonight, attempting to ambush us in the dark. Terrible decision on their part. Sarah spotted them instantly using her night vision. Dropped 2 clean, rapid shots. Before they could even get close, the rest fled whimpering into the darkness. As we pushed deeper into the canyon, I asked Lydia why she chose us. she said. She could tell we were different from the others. That we knew what being judged felt like, for not fitting in, calling us the same kind. Pretty smooth talk for a recruiting princess. She told me that beyond the ice plains lay the savage wastes, home to wild, barbaric tribes. Definitely good to know where to avoid. Then Sarah froze, flashing her most urgent danger signal. Something massive approached. A giant creature rounded the ice wall, standing nearly 2.5 meters tall, covered in filthy white fur and claws, twisted features, hungry little eyes. Lydia immediately recognized it as a northern ice troll, known for insane regeneration and basic intelligence. Sarah shot 2 poison arrows straight into its chest. Unbelievable, the troll just pulled them out, and the wound sealed up in seconds. Poison did nothing. Elena carved a massive gash into its thigh. Green blood everywhere, but it healed before our eyes. My spear barely even scratched it. We just couldn't deal enough damage, faster than the beast could regenerate. I was about to tell Elena to go wild, when Lydia suddenly stepped forward. She pulled a flashy jeweled wand from her robes, chanted a quick spell, launching a fireball right into the troll's chest as the beast shrieked. It's for catching fire, flesh burning up. Turns out, fire stopped its regeneration. Charred wounds wouldn't heal. I didn't waste that open chance. Slamming my shield down, I pinned the thrashing beast, while Elena got to work, shattering its knee instantly, and her next swing took its head clean off. Green blood fountained from the neck stump as that massive body crashed onto the ice. So Lydia was a mage. That explained everything. Her absolute confidence, those gold coins. Traveling alone with only a bear cub, she had serious firepower backing her up. Elena was totally starstruck, practically worshipping her. Sarah just gave a cool, approving nod. I thanked her for the quick assist. Honestly, without that fire magic, we would have been fighting that monster all night. She brushed it off, claiming it was only basic self-defense magic, and she couldn't cast it continuously, so we shouldn't keep relying on her. We kept pushing ahead until we reached a massive, smooth ice wall hidden deep in the canyon. Lydia produced a strange, ancient-looking necklace, pressed it to the ice and began chanting. Immediately, the necklace and wall glowed blue. Then the solid wall split open, revealing a passage sloping deep into the earth, lit only by an eerie blue glow from inside. She turned back to us, her voice shaking with excitement. Follow me, I'm going to show you something real. A forgotten legend of the frozen north. I stared down into that glowing passage, leading straight into the unknown. This was clearly the main reason she came out here. Whatever lay down there was worth 150 gold coins. I gripped my shield tightly and followed her inside. Right at the end of that passage, we stumbled into a massive underground cavern, holding a palace crafted completely from ice crystals. Breathtaking light refracted quite beautifully through the walls, painting rainbow patterns all over. Even I was pretty stunned by it. And I have seen modern skyscrapers. Lydia slowly pulled back her hood, revealing her stunning face, and gave her formal introduction, introducing herself as the Northern Kingdom's first princess. I acted pretty surprised by this, even though I already knew from day one. She confirmed that old campfire legend was real. Her great-great-great-grandmother was that legendary witch queen who cursed the whole kingdom's beauty standards just to marry the prince. But she left a way to break the spell. Passed down secretly among the royal women, Lydia believed it was time to shatter this curse, to end the discrimination against people like Elena, Sarah and herself. But the king, and the rest of her royal family, strictly forbade her from even trying, fearing it would completely destabilize their kingdom. So she snuck out alone to do it herself. So I instantly switched my attitude to, I am here to fight injustice, conveniently ignoring how I refused this exact job just hours ago. Money changes everything, right? First obstacle, the palace had a sealed ice door. Nothing worked, pushing or magic necklaces. Even Lydia's fireballs left absolutely zero marks. Then Sarah noticed some strange mirrors and lenses, frozen right into the walls around the palace. Now, this was my moment. Years of gaming puzzles kicked in instantly. I recognized the setup, the light refraction puzzle. I found a hidden socket fitting Lydia's necklace, which triggered a bright light beam from above. Then I had Elena and Sarah start adjusting those frozen mirrors and lenses, bouncing and channeling the light through a series of reflections, until a concentrated beam finally slammed into the door symbol. The ice melted, and the door creaked open. Lydia stood there, completely astonished. Our royal scholars would have needed actual days to solve this. I just played it cool, silently thinking, Every single classic adventure game I had ever played. Inside, even more puzzles awaited. Pressure plates, moving statues, and wall murals to decode. Standard gaming stuff. My teammates and the princess were both completely lost. But watch this, I speedrun through them all. Elena's pure worship of me hit new heights. Sarah, just staring. Lydia was now profoundly, deeply grateful. Best hire ever. We finally stepped inside the massive throne room. Intimidating, icy power radiated everywhere. Following the clues we found earlier, Lydia pricked her finger, dripping her blood into the groove. On the armrest, a massive secret wall slowly slid open. A tiny hidden chamber, hovering right above an icy pedestal, was a crystal wand holding a massive blue gemstone. The exact cure for her beauty curse. Lydia reached out, her face glowing with pure excitement. Stop, Princess Lydia. Suddenly, soldiers burst into the throne room behind us, and stepping in right after them, the herb apprentices. Their helpless student act was completely gone now, replaced by freezing cold authority. That male apprentice looked right at the completely stunned princess, telling her that her stubbornness ends here. Your Highness, we were followed here. And get this, those apprentices were plants all along, sent specifically to watch the princess, and stop her if she ever tried anything like this. The guards and that male apprentice demanded Lydia hand over the magical wand. They ordered her home under direct command of the king, but Lydia refused, standing tall with her royal pride. Meanwhile, I was quietly planning my escape. Talk about serious royal family drama. Honestly, it wasn't my fault when everything went sideways. The female apprentice suddenly drew a hidden dagger and plunged it straight into her partner's back. He died instantly. Then, absolute chaos, half the soldiers turned on the rest, cutting them down before they could even react. It was horrific. The woman calmly wiped her blade, revealing the dark truth. She worked directly for the crown prince. Lydia's brother wanted that wand completely destroyed, because, you see, it interfered with his private business. She ordered everyone dead, and wanted the whole tragedy covered up as an accident. She never finished giving those orders. The second she ordered them to kill everyone, I loudly screamed for Sarah to attack. Sarah's arrow punched straight through the woman's throat. Before she could even dodge, she dropped, choking on her own blood. So much for her monologue. And she completely went down in one shot. But those soldiers didn't even care. They charged us instantly. I hurled my spear straight at a crossbowman, then drew my short sword and joined the clash. Raising my shield, I stabbed a soldier right under his arm, kicking him hard into his friends. Elena was absolutely terrifying. Her massive swinging strike sliced the soldiers in half, right at the waist. Sarah's deadly arrows kept finding eyes and throats. We were definitely stronger individually, but they had overwhelming numbers and absolutely zero fear. Then, their captain smashed a green glass bottle right at our feet. Noxious poison gas erupted everywhere. My eyes burned and I couldn't breathe. Couldn't see. Elena and Sarah were choking. Lydia's spell completely fizzled mid-cast. Soldiers charged straight through the deadly gas, holding their breath. But look, the baby bear saves us here. It roared, suddenly transforming from a small cub into a full-grown beast, slamming armored soldiers aside like bowling pins, giving us just enough time to stumble out of that toxic poison cloud. Elena, go berserk, I screamed. Her eyes flashed blood red. C rank. Berserk mode activated, completely purging the poison. She immediately tore through the surviving troops, like a brutal hurricane of steel. I guarded her blind spots, parrying any unseen strikes. Sarah quickly drew her sharp rapier, dancing gracefully right through the chaotic skirmish. Every precise thrust piercing gaps in their armor. Lydia finally recovered, blasting a nearby soldier. He was flanking Sarah, but became a screaming torch. But we were suffering, and our bear bled heavily. Elena was slowing down, covered in deep gashes. Only raw berserker rage kept her moving. Suddenly, a blade sliced deep across Sarah's arm. With blood spilling, something finally snapped in me. There was absolutely no way I'd lose them. Drawing a painful breath through my burning throat, I roared out with all my might. Hold on, we are winning this. The handbook reacted right away. A new skill unlocked, Inspire, F rank, directly scaled to my charisma stat. It surged, boosting all my allies' stats, and weakened all negative effects. Like fear and poison, the shift was instant. Elena swung faster, Sarah dodged smoother. Lydia felt her mana pool rushing back. Even our battered bear roared louder now, and crushed an enemy's skull with one paw. Lydia glanced back at me, totally shocked, feeling this incredible buff surging through her. Right in the heart of this bloody fight, surrounded, bleeding, and fighting off deadly poison. And get this, I could make my entire party stronger, simply by refusing to ever back down. This Inspire skill flipped the whole battlefield. My friends received massive boosts to their parameters, and those soldiers simply couldn't keep up. Elena easily carved through them. Sarah's swift arrows pierced every weak spot. Lydia spammed deadly fireballs, while our bear crushed anyone stepping too close. One by one, every last soldier collapsed. Their captain slipped away during all the chaos. I watched him escape, but I was too pinned down to chase him. That mistake is definitely going to haunt us. Once the final guard crashed down, the whole chamber fell dead silent. Nothing left but ragged gasps and thick copper stench. Elena went down first, completely drained and bleeding out. I caught her, and popped one of our rare health potions. Sarah was also pretty badly bleeding, so she got our second potion. Lydia rushed to her giant beast, now shriveled back into a tiny cub. He was hurt, but she had her own special medicine. Get this, we scored in a rank, our best ever, and the rewards were massive. I walked away with 2 stat and 2 skill points. I dumped both stat points straight into toughness, hitting 12, then put my skill points into Inspire, boosting it straight from F to D rank. It is a massive party buff scaling with my charisma, which is luckily my highest stat, sitting at 10. Too good to pass up. Elena's combat instinct reached 70%. I handed her both stat points for her strength, pushing it to 15 while boosting her berserk to B rank. Seriously, the girl is turning into an absolute beast. Sarah's stealth hit 65. We dumped both of her points into agility, putting it at 15, then splitting her remaining points between fencing and archery. Both reached C rank. Basically, she is deadly at any distance now. Lydia thanked us and quietly admitted she had never expected her own brother would try to murder her. You see, that crown prince had some pretty shady schemes, which breaking her curse would completely expose. Now she is fired up to break that curse and expose his entire operation. I warned her though, we just slaughtered a massive chunk of the prince's army. There is absolutely no walking away from this mess now. Then, I laid down the law. Our contract only covered retrieving that stupid artifact. Everything from here on costs extra. She literally promised another 100 gold on top of the first, only payable once we dragged her safely back to Frost City. So we locked up the ice palace and headed to camp. Those 3 civilian escorts were still waiting around, completely oblivious. A few soldiers had already cleared out with the apprentices, but these poor guys just sat tight. We told them absolutely nothing, only that there was a terrible accident, and that everyone else was dead. I made sure to grab the ear boxes too. No wasting those valuable frost mushrooms. We sent those 3 civilians away, paying them their promised cut. And then, our journey began. But get this, our entire wagon was completely gone. Every single other cart nearby had been rented out, for crazy prices. That runaway captain obviously set this up, just to delay us, and buy the prince time to lay some traps. Lydia looked pretty grim. She warned us her brother wouldn't stop here, that the path ahead was totally lethal. I told her straight, we took your gold. We are getting you home safe. Elena and Sarah backed me up, ready to fight. Lydia gave a quiet, grateful nod, and we started walking straight toward Frost City, knowing all too well that someone was trying. Trust me, they'd do anything to stop us. So we ditched the main road, and slipped right into the mountains, hiking through miserable, knee-deep snow, with freezing winds and absolutely no clear trail. But the main highway would be crawling with the prince's men, and our tiny squad couldn't survive an actual ambush. Going slow and safe always beats dying fast. Lydia really struggled on the rough slopes. She's royalty, not some rugged hiker. Yet she didn't complain even once. Almost getting murdered by your brother's elite troops apparently toughens you up pretty fast. Once darkness fell, Sarah managed to find us a tiny cave for shelter. She slipped out to hunt and quickly returned with 3 fat snow rabbits in record time. Elena managed to scavenge some frozen wild berries from the snow. Meanwhile, I built a fire and started roasting the meat, while the others were occupied. I seized the moment and questioned Lydia about the burning question locked in my mind. Could she teach me how to brew healing potions? She shook her head. Alchemy recipes are strictly forbidden to share outside of her guild. Besides, brewing potions requires channeling magic, which I completely lacked. Another total dead end. But get this, she offered another option. No official alchemy formulas, but she could teach me something better. Herbalist recipes that do not require any magic. She taught me to, first, an enhanced healing salve made from thorny seaweed, and a yellow flower called steel bloom, growing in rock cracks. Mixed with oil, it is perfect for muscle injuries, way superior to my stuff. Second, a healing powder ground from 3 very common spring herbs, earthroot grass, silver leaf, and calming flower. Mixed directly into that advanced salve, it actually speeds up healing. For minor injuries, it easily replaces those super expensive potions. Thankfully, my S-rank sharp memory locked every detail into my brain. Instantly, you just know these recipes are a total gold mine. We quietly ate roasted rabbit and sour berries by the fire. Lydia and Elena, Sarah and that bear cub, all huddled closely under their warm cloaks, and drifted off to sleep. I took first watch, sitting alone by the dying fire. I finally dropped the cheerful act I had maintained for group morale. Truth is, getting back to Frost City on foot was not actually the hardest part. Thanks to Sarah, Elena's raw power, and my brains, we could easily handle the wild. The real headache was what came after we got there. Lydia had zero real political power. Her unusual looks made her an outcast in her own home. Meanwhile, her brother, the Crown Prince, had years of massive political influence, loyal troops, and absolutely zero issues with murdering his own sister. We were walking straight into his territory. Could our tiny group actually keep her safe against a future king's entire network, in a city literally crawling with his spies and deadly assassins? I thought about it long and hard. My final plan: safely deliver Lydia, grab whatever reward she could actually pay us, then grab Elena and Sarah right away, and run as far away as we can. Royal drama is like absolute quicksand. Step too deep and you sink before you know it. Gold is great, but staying alive is much better. I tossed another log onto it, and stared out into the black night. This journey ahead was going to be dangerous regardless. But first, we must survive these frozen mountains. Get in, get paid, then vanish. 10 brutal days of hiking through frozen peaks. Frost City's massive walls finally appeared. Shining ahead, I have honestly never felt so incredibly relieved. Lydia was ready to march right through the front gate. She assumed her brother wouldn't dare, in broad daylight near the capital walls. Still, I sent Sarah to scout first. She reported a clear path, so we brushed ourselves off and walked right up to the entrance. Lydia pulled out her royal seal, and the gate guards nearly tripped over themselves. Moments later, a full guard detail arrived to escort us safely inside. And then came the message that absolutely ruined my mood. The king himself wanted an audience. I just wanted to grab our gold and quickly disappear. Instead, they were dragging us into the royal palace. First though, a long, hot bath as they led us to the royal bathhouse, warmed by natural hot springs. After 10 brutal days of freezing mountain travel, I didn't wash, just dove straight into bliss. Lydia and the girls were right next door, laughing and splashing next door, which was incredibly distracting. I focused entirely on not thinking about it. Clean and dressed in fresh clothes, we entered the massive throne room. This king was exactly what I expected. 50s, tall, and powerfully built. Thick beard, with eyes that could pin you to the wall. We knelt just like the servants quickly taught us. But get this, the way the king looks at Lydia is totally unexpected. No cold disappointment or distance here, but genuine warmth and some obvious exasperation. She clearly wasn't as isolated as I'd first assumed. Lydia gave a masterfully polished version of our journey. She kept all the exciting adventure parts in, but the details about her brother, sending his soldiers to murder her, were totally omitted, blaming the dead guards on ancient temple defense systems. She presented the ancient wand to the king, and left the final decision to him. He examined it closely, then handed it right back to her, telling her she'd earned the right to decide its future. But she could only depend on her own resources now, not the crown support. A classic political move. He acknowledged her without fully committing himself, keeping the prince versus prince's feud at arm's length. Right on cue, the crown prince walks in, mid-20s, wearing expensive clothes, ice-cold eyes. He pretended to care deeply about his sister's safety, while glaring directly at me and my team, with absolute, undisguised contempt, calling us mere commoners who didn't belong in the palace. The king frowned but said absolutely nothing. Lydia deflected him calmly. The prince stormed out, completely ignoring her. Later, I quietly asked Lydia why she didn't expose him, especially his murder attempt. She explained that without any concrete proof, accusing the crown prince would just make her look like some troublemaker. But while the king stayed alive, the prince could never openly strike her in the city. A complete stalemate. Then Lydia handed over a pouch, check this out, holding 20 platinum coins. Since 1 platinum equals 10 gold, that is 200 gold from silver, plus the 50 gold deposit we had. This quick job earned us 250 gold. Lydia said a warm goodbye, saying she really enjoyed our company. And I treated her normally, unlike those stuffy nobles. She said her brother was her own problem now, and she refused to drag us any deeper. Elena and Sarah felt quite sad parting ways. They had bonded with the princess over their shared struggles of being judged solely on looks. Me, I just said all the polite things, while screaming internally with joy. Free at last, no more royal assassination plots, no palace politics, just me, my girls, and a fortune in platinum. Walking out of the palace, we stepped onto the bustling Frost City streets. The air felt lighter, the future wide open. Family drama, not my problem anymore, guys. Time to figure out how to spend this, and where to head next. The second we left the palace, my handbook rated our mission rank C, giving us 1 stat point each for the escort. I put my point into toughness again. Elena's combat instinct hit 80%. Sarah's stealth reached 80%, and everyone got tougher. I really wanted to restock and leave Frost City immediately, because that prince is pretty dangerous. I definitely did not want to spend another night on his home turf. But we didn't even reach the market. Walking down a crowded street, out of nowhere, some guy screams. He stabs his own arm and grabs Alina, shouting that the beast girl just assaulted him. Classic setup, you know how this goes. A squad of guards rounds the street corner, charging right at us, way too fast. I kick him hard in the stomach, grab both girls, and run. Sarah is our savior. She knows every alley, every single hidden path in town. Thanks to her cat-like exploring habits, she leads us through a filthy maze. We dodge down tight streets, losing them. We end up hiding in the slums, the most lawless place around, 0 questions. We find a broken-down shack to use. I disguise myself as a struggling, broke adventurer, making quick friends with the locals, handing out cheap wine and bits of bread. Alina and Sarah have to stay inside. Their beast ears and tails are too obvious, way too recognizable out there. I sneak out with dirt and a fake mustache, just to look around. It's really bad. Our faces are plastered at every single gate. No messy sketches either. Almost photographic portraits. They hired a seriously skilled artist. The whole city is totally locked down. I pay slum kids for info. Copper coins get me all kinds of rumors. The palace is completely sealed. Noble mansions are getting raided. Something major is happening. Then, we get the ultimate shocker. A breathless kid runs in, the king's dead. The crown prince took the throne, and blamed Princess Lydia, claiming she murdered her father. Her execution is in 3 days. Thrown to starving monsters to be shredded. Right in the royal arena. I freeze. Lydia was so incredibly sure, confident that her father would keep her safe. She never imagined her brother would kill the king himself and frame her. Elena grabbed my arm immediately. We absolutely must save her. She's a good person. Even Sarah agreed. Quite unusual for her. I seriously hate that prince. Yet, every rational part of my brain screamed that storming this was suicide. Crashing an execution against a whole kingdom's military. We were 3 people in a slum. And honestly, we couldn't just walk away here. Lydia had fought right beside us. She trusted us, paid us fairly, and treated Elena and Sarah like equals. And realistically, with the prince taking complete charge, we would be hunted forever anyway. Saving Lydia might be our only real shot at any kind of future. Looking at them, Elena was desperate. Sarah was determined. So I made my call. Fine. I knew that 200 gold was too good to be true. Let's move. We slipped through Frost City. During the absolute deadliest hour of the night. The extreme cold was somehow our main ally. Even guards retreated to their warming stations. The outer city was practically entirely empty. But the inner city was different. Fancy carriages filled the streets and brightly lit taverns, with armored patrols marching with purpose. We pressed deeper into the dark shadows. You can bet one wrong step would ruin everything. Luckily, Sarah was our secret weapon. I sent her ahead to infiltrate the palace completely alone. Her stealth talent was 85% now, allowing her to move like a real shadow cat. She used the grappling hook I had crafted with my D rank item, skill to scale the palace walls without making a sound. slipping past every single guard. She found Lydia exactly where I had guessed, inside her own private quarters, sitting alone at a vanity, looking exhausted and quite sad. With her bear cub asleep right at her feet, Sarah tapped on the window. Lydia nearly jumped straight out of her skin. Before breaking into a massive, relieved smile, she recognized those cat ears. Sneaking Lydia down the tower and climbing back over that wall was totally terrifying, but smooth since palace guards were shockingly thin. And Lydia explained why once we reunited, her brother spent these past few days purging the palace of anyone loyal to the king, or anyone potentially opposing the prince. They were executed or imprisoned. Most positions were completely filled with his corrupt thugs, or totally empty, which is why patrols felt so incredibly lax. I told her we had to move immediately, before anyone noticed she went missing. But instead of making a break for the gates, Lydia led us straight to the sewers. I actually knew these sewers from our old adventuring days, where we once hunted mutant rats years ago. There were 0 exits to the outside. This whole system was just a waste processing facility, packed with garbage-eating slimes. I honestly could not see how this helped us escape, but Lydia actually knew something we didn't. Deep in those sewers, she stopped at a plain mossy wall, pulled out her magical necklace, and chanted. The wall opened, revealing a hidden corridor leading to a small, underground stone vault, completely sealed off from the sewers above. Inside sat only a stone table, some old benches, and ancient murals covering the stone walls. This was some ancient and hidden royal safe house, likely centuries old. Lydia sealed the door behind us, and finally let go. She slumped against the cold wall, her face filled with pure rage, then looked at us and spoke. I finally know what my brother's secret business is. The truth he was so desperate to hide. Inside that hidden room, get ready. Finally, she revealed his absolutely horrific operation. He was kidnapping girls, deemed ugly by their harsh northern standards, girls who looked pretty normal by the rest of the world's standards, and selling them off to southern kingdoms. That twisted beauty curse was literally his whole business model, so if Lydia broke it, his entire operation would completely collapse. But that wasn't even why he killed the king. The real trigger though, their father was actually starting to consider naming Lydia as his heir instead. The prince panicked, poisoning his own father, framed Lydia, and seized the throne. But Lydia had a plan. This ancient northern tradition called trial by combat. If enough powerful nobles backed her challenge, not even the prince could refuse it. And she believed many nobles secretly hated him. They'd prefer a weaker queen they could easily control over an unpredictable tyrant. She asked us to help rally those nobles. This time, I didn't negotiate any payment. My gut was telling me, helping reshape an entire kingdom's history would trigger something absolutely massive. In our handbook, something far more valuable than gold. I agreed, since talking people into things is my absolute specialty. Lydia led us through another secret passage, one built by her direct ancestor, the original Witch Queen, known only to certain royal women. It stretched all the way from under the city, straight to the mountains outside. We emerged miles from the capital, completely free. I asked why she hadn't used the wand yet to break this beauty curse, but she had two problems. First, the prince had confiscated her wand when she was locked up. Second, breaking it required her to climb the tallest, most dangerous peak in the entire north, Hoskard Mountain, and casting it from the summit. So the wand was gone, the mountain was deadly, and right now, we had much bigger problems. Lydia wanted to visit two potential allies. First was the Baron of Frostwind, our old hometown, along with a western count named Volf, who was pretty tight with the king. Frostwind Town was first. We knew the path, and the Baron owed us. As we set off, our guidebook awarded B rank for that prison break, giving everyone to stat points. I pushed my strength to 12. Elena hit 15 toughness, and Sarah reached 17 agility. She was becoming insanely fast. But then, the guidebook does something completely unexpected. The pages start turning themselves, revealing a gold-bordered page I had never seen. A legendary adventure chapter unlocked. The objective, Crown of Ice and Fire. Help Princess Lydia stabilize the Northern Kingdom. Rewards depend on our final contribution. Warning. Extreme difficulty and risk. A kingdom-level quest. Legendary rewards. My heart was pounding. This was no longer about hunting wolves or selling medicine. We were playing for the fate of a nation. Now, Frostwind Town was merely our first stop. The real fight was just beginning. A few days later, we finally arrived in Frostwind Town. The locals noticed us right away. Sensing we had changed, Elena still looked sweet and clumsy on the outside, but people felt something dangerous hiding underneath. Sarah moved exactly like a ghost, barely visible unless she wanted to be, when her green eyes sweep over someone. They shiver. Lydia kept her hood up, but that cute baby bear trotting beside her got plenty of stares and whispers. People were already hearing rumors about trouble in the capital. The town actually looked better than I expected. All the damage from the bandit raid was repaired. The Baron did his job on that front. Respect where it is due. At his manor, Lydia revealed her identity, telling him everything, including her brother's slave trade, a king's murder, a massive frame-up. The Baron slams his heavy fist onto the table. Cups rattle. He is absolutely furious. Lydia asks him to back a legendary trial by combat, ancient northern tradition, where noble disputes finally get settled. In a brutal fight to the death, under the god's watch, he hesitates. The prince has a terrifying champion on his side, named Bear Crusher Grick, a monstrous, half-ogre beast, known as the most brutal fighter around. He begs Lydia to just flee south with us, but she refuses. This is her kingdom. She must avenge her father and protect her people. I step up, reminding him we already took down an ogre, and Sarah points out the giant bear, saying bigger targets just have much bigger weak spots. The Baron looks at us, cocky leader, secretly terrifying dog girl, an ice-cold cat girl assassin, and a princess who absolutely refuses to back down. He is in full support pledge to our cause. Look at this. He lays out the political map to drag the prince into this deadly trial. Lydia needs help, backing from 3 out of the 4 great houses. First, the Volv clan, her father's friends, likely supporters, then the Bear family, proud miners who hold massive grudges against the prince. They are persuadable. Next, dear, shady schemers, probably the ones behind that bandit raid on town. Tough, Eagle clan. Their daughter is betrothed to the prince. Total enemies. So, the plan: rally the wolves first to secure our footing, then win over Bear and Deer. 3 houses is enough to completely force the prince to accept. I am loving this. It is a classic quest chain. Winning people over is literally my specialty, I boast, but before we can even start, the butler bursts in. Royal cavalry from the capital had already reached the gates. The prince's private hunters had already tracked us down. Our baron did not hesitate. He ordered the loyal butler to get us out through a hidden secret passage, saying he would handle the soldiers himself. Follow the plan. May our ancestors protect you. Masters watch over you. I grabbed Elena and hissed at Sarah and Lydia to run, slipping deep into the manor's dark, hidden corridors. The brave baron had bought us some precious time. But man, that prince was closing in fast. We had to reach the Volv territory before they caught us. So we laid an ambush along the trail. I knew the prince's bloodhounds would chase us down. We chose our ground very carefully. Sarah climbed high into a tree, invisible in the dark. Elena, Lydia, and I hid in the bushes nearby. I set up the simplest trap imaginable. A strong rope stretched between trees at horse-leg height, hidden underneath a light dusting of snow. I also intentionally left some false tracks on the path, to make those arrogant riders rush forward blindly. Suddenly, about 20 enemy cavalry came thundering down the path, wearing the prince's colors, their faces full of arrogant confidence. I slapped Elena on the back. She yanked that heavy rope taut with insane strength. I wrapped it around a trunk to hold. The lead riders hit the tripwire at full speed. Horses screamed. Talk about a spectacular crash. Bones shattered as 7 or 8 went down instantly. Broken necks trampled by their own panicking horses. Their frantic captain tried to rally the remaining survivors. Sarah put an arrow right through his throat before he could finish his command. Then she started picking them off from the treetops, every single arrow finding a neck, a face, an exposed armpit, any gap in armor. Lydia threw a blazing fireball into the remaining cluster. It wasn't quite strong enough to kill, but it completely panicked their remaining mounts. Horsemen get thrown off and scattered everywhere. I trigger Inspire, giving everyone a massive boost. Spearing forward, I charged straight at a dazed opponent, with a clean thrust straight through his chest. Elena bursts from the bushes like a crazed berserker demon, literally claiming heads with every swing. The baby bear transforms. Mid-charge, he shifts into full-grown mode. He swats one, sending him and his horse flying. Wait for it, 20-plus elite cavalry wiped out in minutes. Just a rope, a sniper, a mage, a berserker, and one giant shape-shifting bear, against soldiers who lost all advantage. the very second they hit the cold ground. Once the dust settles, I immediately switch into practical mode, sending Alina to go loot the bodies. Her scavenging instincts make her absolutely perfect for this. She happily scoops up coins and valuables, bringing them back to me like a puppy playing fetch. Sarah and Lydia round up for war horses that had not run too far. I upgrade my spear, grabbing steel arrows for Sarah. Meanwhile, Elena trades her chipped sword for a massive, two-handed greatsword. She finds out it is almost as tall as her. Here comes the truly embarrassing part, actually riding these horses. Lydia mounts her horse with royal grace, learned as a child. Sarah literally intimidates hers into submission. With a cold look, easily finding her own balance, Elena bear hugs her mount, clinging to the saddle with a terrified face, whispering, "Do not drop me." And me? I flop onto mine like a total sack of potatoes, belly first right across the saddle. After a humiliating shift, I sit upright but feel wrong everywhere. Awkward legs, aching back, already sore. Lydia tries teaching me the absolute basics, while barely holding back her laughter. We head straight toward Wolf territory. Lydia rode elegantly up front, making us look ridiculous. Behind her, Sarah stayed totally steady and alert. Elena was basically lying completely flat on her mount, just trying to survive, while I bounced around like a puppet with cut strings, gritting my teeth, silently begging my system handbook, "Please, for the love of God, grant me a riding skill," but nothing. When Wolf Castle finally showed up on the horizon, honestly, I almost cried with relief. Days of riding had turned my poor backside into completely numb slabs of frozen meat. Finally, the handbook took pity on me and unlocked F-rank riding, which meant I could actually stay mounted. Well, barely falling off. But Elena had it worse. She spent the entire trip hugging her mount's neck, like her life depended on it. Green face, droopy ears, tail tightly tucked away. Every time she got down, she walked like she was totally beaten up. Sarah naturally rode like she had been doing it forever. Flawless balance, perfect rhythm. She kept telling us to engage our core, while looking down at us with pure pity. As we neared the gates, a squad of cavalry rode out to meet us. But wait, those aren't horses. They were actually riding giant wolves. And these riders were Wolf-type beast folk, way bigger and more feral looking than Elena. Real Wolf men covered in gray fur, jutting snouts and sharp fangs. This was the legendary Wolf cavalry of House Wolf. Honestly, I was thrilled and absolutely terrified. Lydia showed her face, and they quickly ushered us inside, with ultimate respect. But the castle's interior was the shocker. From outside, it looked rugged, but inside, these Wolf men lived like proper Victorian gentlemen. The males wore finely tailored suits, monocles, top hats, and the females wore elegant gowns, all with perfectly groomed fur. They even covered their mouths with furry paws when laughing. These beasts could easily tear a tiger to shreds. We're just sipping fine wine and making polite conversation. My brain completely broke. Count Jong Wolf himself was absolutely massive. Pure silver fur. He radiated pure power, even in his sleek black suit. The second he saw Lydia, he rushed straight over, hat off, his voice full of worrying. He already heard about the capital, and strongly suspected she was innocent. Lydia held back tears and explained everything to him. The dark slave trade, the king's murder, her frame up, and the death sentence. The count's fur stood completely on end as he growled in pure rage, shaking the mansion and the chandeliers. Every single Wolf man in the hall bared their fangs in response. When Lydia finally asked him to back a trial by combat, he immediately calmed down and got serious, warning us about the Crown Prince's champion warrior, Crush-a-Grick, a massive half-ogre that absolutely nobody in the north could defeat. Supporting a trial he knew Lydia was bound to lose was no different than watching her die right there. And he could never do that to his best friend's daughter. So I stepped forward and confidently declared we had what it takes. He looked at me with obvious, heavy skepticism, literally calling me a smooth-faced kid who only talks big. Then came his only condition: prove it. Beat his elite warriors in a test fight. If we couldn't handle his own people, he would never let Lydia walk into a death match. I glanced back over at Elena, whose ears were pinned back with nervousness, and Sarah, whose tail was quite stiff with tension. Then I grinned and spread my hands wide. Well then, looks like we'll just have to show the count exactly what we can do. Elena, Sarah, stretch out, because it is time to open some eyes. The Wolf Castle training grounds were packed to the brim with spectators. Wolfmen stood around in fancy suits, They were absolutely dying to watch us get crushed. Our opponent, Captain Steelfang himself. He was basically a mountain of pure muscle, carrying a massive training axe that looked way heavier than me. For elite Wolf warriors backed him in tight formation, training weapons only, but those heavy wooden clubs could easily break bones. On our side, I had a wooden spear and shield. Elena dragged a heavy practice greatsword, almost as tall as she was, and Sarah carried a single wooden sword. Since they lacked rapiers here, the wolfmen around the arena were already placing baits. Almost everyone expected a 5-second beatdown. Then, the referee gave the signal. Steelfang's squad let out a deafening war cry and began their advance, shaking the cold ground with every single step. They expected us to retreat, but wait for this. Instead, I sucked in a breath and screamed about gold. My Inspire skill activated, surging power straight through us. And then, I charged straight at their line, leading headfirst with my shield. Steelfang swung his massive axe to blow me away, but with my newly boosted strength, I caught him completely off guard. His wooden axe rattled off my shield, and I slammed directly into their line, hard enough to push the giant back to paces, splitting their defensive line wide open. Enter Elena. She exploded straight through the gap like a cannonball. Her brutal cleaving strike sent that wooden, great sword swinging in a massive arc. One Wolf warrior's training axe snapped in half, sending him flying as another got knocked backward, shield and all, tumbling across the dirt. But Steelfang recovered incredibly fast, ditching me to strike at Elena, but she twisted mid-swing, redirecting her blade upward to meet his axe head-on. That brutal impact ripped the weapon from his hand and sent it spinning high into the sky. He stumbled backward, completely stunned. The whole clash took maybe 5 seconds total. The last two wolfmen rushed in to help, before suddenly feeling a freezing edge right against their necks. Sarah had somehow appeared behind them like a ghost. Her wooden practice blades rested directly against their throats. With real steel, they would be dead. Silence. Then utter chaos. The wolfmen erupted. They respect absolute strength above all else, and what they just saw was undeniable. Their ultimate elite champion was completely dismantled in moments. Thunderous howls of approval literally shook the castle walls. Count Wolf walked straight to the center of the yard. His golden eyes gleamed with pure surprise and respect. He looked at Lydia and made a massive declaration. I, Jean Wolf, pledge the complete backing of House Wolf for Princess Lydia's upcoming trial by combat against Prince Osis, for the fallen king and true northern justice. Every single wolfman let out a massive howl together. The epic sound echoed across the snowy mountains. Lydia's eyes shined as she bowed very deeply. First ally secured. Suddenly, the handbook lit up with a major milestone. Howl of Alliance. We got to stat points and a skill point. For myself, I pushed my toughness to 15, and upgraded my Inspire skill to C rank. Elena's combat instinct hit 90%, making her stronger. Sarah's stealth reached 90%, boosting her defenses too. That night, the wolves threw us a massive feast. Steelfang personally toasted my victory, admitting he lost completely fair and square, and that their kind respect power above everything else. I told him it was total luck, and flattered him completely, until he was grinning widely from ear to furry ear. Check out these updated stats. My toughness is 15 and Elena's strength is 16. Sarah's agility is at 17. Honestly, we are becoming absolute beasts. One noble house down, but two more to convince. The prince's legendary beast champion, Crusher Greg, was still waiting for us, but this time, taking him down actually felt possible. We departed Wolf Castle at dawn, backed by a small squad of Wolf cavalry, led by Steelfang. Our target, House Bears, lands to the southeast. Steelfang warned us House Eagle, who had their daughter betrothed to the prince, would definitely be watching every road. They basically ran intelligence and surveillance, and the Wolf Count could not send too many troops without sparking a massive civil war. Sure enough, Sarah spotted trouble. A trained hawk circling way above us, way out of arrow range, a House Eagle spy, pinpointing our location and reporting back. Honestly, I treated this like a strategy game. Even with aerial surveillance, information still needs time to travel. That hawk has to fly back or get swapped out, leaving a temporary gap. So I had Sarah track the bird constantly. The exact second she saw them swapping birds, I instantly ordered everyone to change course and dash into the thick forest. We bought ourselves a little time, but we knew they would guess our target eventually. But wait, Steelfang actually had a crazy plan. He and his pack would run the main highway, wearing Lydia's cloak as a clever decoy. pulling all the heat, while we slipped through narrow hunting trails, fast and completely hidden. Lydia argued it was far too dangerous, but Steel Fang just bared his massive fangs, grinning as he spoke. Wolf cavalry never gets caught on open ground. I weighed the risks and agreed. Stealth and speed were everything here, not an open battle. We split up. Steel Fang's riders bolted, drawing every eye, while we changed into basic traveler gear. We wrapped our blades and slipped away on foot. After 2 days of brutal hiking, we almost reached the Bear territory border. Suddenly, 100 Eagle cavalry charged over the hill, cutting us off under their silver eagle banners, their polished armor completely surrounding us. I shoved Lydia back. Elena immediately unsheathed her massive greatsword. Sarah already had her arrow knocked. Those baby bears started growling and swelling, but they held back.